right-wing derangement syndrome, of course, about Nigel Farage or R-Nige or whatever you want to call him. This seems to be a popular topic, which I'm honestly quite surprised at. I thought people would be bored of talking about this sort of thing now, because we've kind of done two Tosh talks on this subject before, but people absolutely love their slop. And I still have things to say on this, to be fair. So I guess it's time to introduce the panel.
This is a good panel.
This is a good panel. I think we have a wide range of opinions on this, which is what we want. So firstly, Cero. Hello, Cero.
Hello. I am full of bad opinions.
That's good, but luckily
I'm happy to see everyone.
That's good. Luckily, I don't think you're on the side of having derangement syndrome on this subject, which is
I can
ideal.
if need be.
No, I don't think you'll need to. Because next up we have Tory Rebuttal, or Hipster Tory Boy 1 as we call him. Because
hello.
he's a hipster.
I hopefully will have no derangement syndrome tonight.
I don't think you necessarily... Well, you have derangement syndrome, it's just with the Tories. But I don't think I think you're just pretty realistic about Farage, to be fair to you. We will get into what the derangement syndrome is, and I think you'll know what I mean. I mean, to be fair, you can see on my share screen, like, kind of the origins of when I started to see really bad Farage derangement syndrome. And to be fair, I think barely anyone in the Worcester Club particularly likes Ben Habib, to be fair, which is who is behind the crying soy jack on the screen right now, that the rest of the stream can see. But you are definitely going to be simping for the Tories, I imagine, today.
That is my role.
There we go. Oh, perfect. It's a good thing we've got you on then. And finally, we've got Tharium. Hello, Tharium.
Hello.
To be fair to Tharium,
See, like I said,
go on.
well, like I said, we've got on one side we've got Tory Rebuttal, Tory till I die. Then we've got you, who is Rubber 2.0.
Right.
Then me, I'm a homosexual, and Cero is somewhere in between.
I am a wild card.
To be fair to you, Tharium, your derangement syndrome isn't so much with Farage, but with Zaya. But I can't really be
totally
bothered.
Justified.
I can't really be bothered with that conversation today. You're certainly one of the better homosexuals, though.
When Ofcom gets deposed, we can then have the conversation.
Well, possibly
Something like that.
But,
yeah, exactly.
But yes, it's going to be obviously a discussion today about Farage derangement syndrome, and mainly around conversations in the online right. And I have a handful of select people that I would like to go through. Have you seen Carl's video claiming Enoch Powell wasn't a liberal from today? No, but I am definitely having a look at that. Excuse me. If he actually says on a video that Enoch Powell wasn't a liberal, I'm going to go nuclear. That's probably one of the stupidest things you can say.
I mean, he's not a modern day liberal. If
I was
going to
say, what's the definition of liberal?
No, well, Carl's
this
stupid.
Is your video. You know, this is your video. There's like 5 levels. It's like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but Carl's talking about all of them. Carl literally says, "Oh, this was it from the start. It was always about like subverting power or whatever." It's like, oh my god, the power was already subverted. It was about how do we, deal with this new world where feudalism's already kind of collapsed. That was the whole point of the Leviathan, and obviously that went on to John Locke. But yeah, if he said that,
I don't necessarily want to get into it right now, but it is quite silly a thing to say because obviously Enoch Powell was pretty much one of the founders of neoliberalism.
Well, yeah,
but that goes into the whole debate about whether neoliberalism is actually liberal. But
well, it was supposed to be almost a revival of Victorian, well, everything, I guess, attitudes, culture, but whatever. I'll have to take a look at that because that sounds like it needs a reaction video, because especially with all the series we've done on Enoch Powell on this channel, along with other channels that I don't think you can actually access anymore, unfortunately. We've gone through so much Enoch Powell stuff that we basically just came down to the conclusion that he's well, as you say, he was the founder of neoliberalism. He was effectively a Thatcherite before Thatcher.
Yeah. Did we accidentally meme ourselves into being the worldwide authority on Enoch Powell?
We pretty much, well, I mean, we are outside of Simon Heffer, who wrote his biography. But he claimed Thatcher was Sorry,
Oh yeah, sorry, Karen.
he claimed Thatcher was a liberal and hated power because he wasn't. I don't think they hated each other.
Yeah, yeah.
That's quite silly.
That's very silly. I can't believe he said. Well, what am I saying? Of course, I can believe he said that. We're going to go into why I can believe he said that. What were you saying, Sarah?
Don't worry.
Okay, I won't. Right, we may as well get into the subject then, because I do have quite a lot of tabs open at the start. So, yeah, obviously, quite a lot of this derangement syndrome, it kind of predates this, but this clip was probably one of the biggest that made me go nuclear on a lot of the online right, because I still cannot believe that this clip exists. But out of interest, who here's actually seen this like full clip that I nicked off the Lotus Eaters?
I think I saw it back in the day. I can't remember it though.
Okay.
Was this the interview?
Well, yeah. But specifically what they say here, I think you'll see what I mean by Farage derangement syndrome.
If Nigel hadn't come back, we were going to go higher in the polls after winning 5 seats. Under Richard Tice, we would have gone higher in the polls because people would have looked at reform and said, wow, oh my God, they are not just a protest vote, they've actually got seats.
So this is all about Farage coming in and apparently not being any sort of help to reform.
No offense, I didn't know about reform before Farage joined.
Why would anyone take offense to that?
Did I break a little bit forward?
No,
it's fine.
No, you're right.
I mean, well, I obviously did a whole video on this on my own channel, but I've got the two bits of information we need. But it's the two bits of polling data. Just Farage comes in on this black line in the first picture, and Reform's polling it rockets up, and that's even more clear with this particular one with the numbers. This particular chart with the numbers, obviously they're going between like kind of 9%, sometimes up to 12%. There's one with 14%, to be fair. And then as soon as Farage joins, he joins on, what is that, 3rd of June? You know, the first poll after that's 9%, but that's because it did it till it was a week long, and they did it till the 4th. Every other one after Farage joined, it's a bump up. 14's the lowest now. It goes up to 17. I still can't believe that this clip was made, as I said, and in my other Discord I've had people say, you know, why are you attacking Carl for this? It's like, because this was crazy. There's no other word for it. I mean, we may as well go through it. We've got the time. Because Ben Habib doesn't stop saying stupid things.
And that's seismic. We broke into the first past the post system. We got 5 seats and we came second in 98 seats. Under the first past the post, with the right policies and the right people, we could win a general election. It's not nonsense.
Of course, the whole thing here is, the context you have to bear in mind is that he's saying we could do this without Farage. Which
is this after the general election?
This is way after.
It must be.
This was after the low. This was during the low. This was during the low debacle where the Lotus Eaters kept having on people to basically bash Farage. And Ben Habib was obviously one of the biggest ones because
he was only kicked out after the election, of course.
Well, he wasn't even kicked out. He left of his own volition.
But you know where he was like removed from his position.
Yeah, well, yeah.
After the election.
Well, he was deputy.
Because Zaya bought his way in.
Well, no, he was deputy leader. No, it's because he didn't win his seat.
Richard Tice needed a job, didn't he?
Yeah, it's because Richard Tice had to be the deputy leader because he won his seat. This was nothing to do with Zia.
I think it was.
No. Ben Habib blames Zia, but this would have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
But Ben Habib saying stupid stuff here. How can you trust anything he says if he's saying things this stupid?
No, it's because Zaya bought his way in, so
Zaya.
So
what do you mean we need to make room for Zaya? Zaya didn't take his job.
That was a position that should have gone to Ben Habib, probably.
Probably. This is what I mean by you have Zaya derangement syndrome. But anyway, I'm not talking about Zaya.
Before that, we all agreed that Ben Habib was a pretty decent guy. He's been a right
he's been-
crybaby since.
Yeah, he's been a moron
But-
since.
But he was. I don't think he should have been demoted like that.
What do you mean? He wasn't the only one who was demoted, and other people have
Say-
stayed
oh,
on.
yeah, who was saying? I can't remember
Dr.
the other
David
guy's name.
Bull.
Dr. David Bull.
Yeah, yeah. Like, okay, give the chairman position to him instead. You know, it should have been one of them.
Well, he's deputy chairman, isn't he?
I think he is. Yeah, I don't remember.
You know, but you know, either of them.
But
should have been
David
the chairman.
Bull didn't. David Bull didn't become chairman because Zaya bought his way in. Yes, that's true. But
Yeah.
Ben Habib had already been kicked out at that point, or he'd already left at that point.
Yeah, this because they changed all the positions after the election because they had to do it as quick as possible, obviously. And then Zaya was brought in like 3 days after the election, so I think this all happened before Zaya anyway. Ben Habib I don't really care. I'm not here to talk about Zaya.
No, I'm talking about Ben Habib.
Yeah, well, but
He's, like, you know,
regardless,
the way he was
the only
promoted,
thing-
though, you can see why he was. You can
why-
see why he's pissed off, right?
Oh, yeah, I could. Ben Habib's an idiot who wanted it his way, and he didn't get his way, and so he threw his toys out of the pram and effectively thought one of two things happened with Ben Habib. He either thought he could damage the reform enough to then get a place in the Tories, or he was going to make his own party. And I don't think he's doing either of those things now because he's completely failed in his attacks. I don't think he'd join the Tories because why would he trust them? And he's not. I can't see him doing anything with integrity. I don't see the point. It's just a waste of money at this point. I would have thunk.
Well, that'll take time. But one thing I will defend Ben Habib about is that he did stick by Richard Tice for several years.
Yeah.
After the 2019 election, when they converted it from the Brexit Party into the Reform Party, he was there for the whole time up until the 2024 election. And so
that's
that was
why
a point, you know.
Yeah, and then
you should reward loyalty, not £200,000.
Well,
why not both?
Why not both? It's not only that, but you've also got. It's like Gawain Towler's reaction to losing his place as a spokesman for the party. You know, nobody has a job in politics forever. If you lose your seat, you know you're gonna get demoted in place of someone like Richard Tice, who ended up obviously getting the deputy leader space, and that was Ben Habib's main problem. Ben Habib didn't go about saying, "Oh, I should have been chairman," blah blah blah. He was annoyed that he got kicked out of a role he would have got kicked out of anyway, because you need your deputy leader to obviously be an MP, because they need to be your acting leader in Parliament. So and then obviously this was the whole Rupert Lowe thing, and as we went through with that, we've been through this timeline loads of times. If you want more detail on it, look to my channel. But we know Ben Habib was like texting Rupert Lowe, effectively saying, "Oh, don't trust Nige, don't trust Nige, don't trust Nige. He always throws people under the bus, blah blah blah." And well, now we're at this point in the timeline where we know they made the complete wrong move there, and obviously this is why I call it. You know, you can be. I don't think being very 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 annoyed at Farage justifies this level of derangement. These are absolutely ridiculous things to say. They would not get as far without Farage.
Yeah,
which is the point.
What he's saying here. I mean, reform is entirely its growth is entirely on Nigel.
Pretty, certainly initially, yeah.
I actually think that's not what he's saying here.
What do you think he's saying?
I think he's just really poorly worded it. What he's saying is that if they had won several MP seats in 2024, then the rise in the polls that's happened since then would have happened anyway. Even without
Nigel. Would they have won those seats without Nigel?
But I don't exactly. That's the thing. He's like, well, but they only won those 4 seats, 4 or 5.
Let me remind you what he ends up saying here, because it gets worse.
We could do it, but you've got to have the right people, and you can't get the right people if you have a despot, a narcissistic, prickly, adolescent despot in charge of reform. And that's what Nigel is. Nigel is a problem for reform. He's not the answer.
Listening to this in hindsight is pretty hilarious when you think about it. Yeah, saying Farage is damaging to reform. I mean, even earlier, Sarah was saying never even heard of reform before Niger he was honorary president for a couple of years, but then he became full-on leader and became a candidate. Jew as well. They go on about this in the conversation in other clips. Well, in the rest of the interview, effectively saying that Nigel just wanted his glory again. That's all he wanted. There's money in it, whatever. And I was like, no, it's pretty clear that even watching the clips of him going around in public campaigning, people always asked him, why don't you try and put yourself forward? You could become prime minister one day. People were effectively begging in the street for him to come back, and it's pretty clear that's why he did it. If he wanted to be rich, he would have stayed at GB News and just read the news every night for the rest of his life. Because
at the end of the day,
it's pretty easy.
Even just from a simple marketing perspective, Mr. Brexit was the last person who actually managed to get a seismic shift in the two-party politics. And so,
yeah,
he's the name. He is the name recognition. If you want to, if you want to be able to shift things. Now, that might not actually be true, but the fact is that people think it's true, and that makes it true enough. We complain about vibes-based politics, but politics are vibes.
Of course they are. Yeah, of course they are. Someone's just mentioned in chat, yep, there are indeed 38 people watching the channel. It is fairly popular, but also I'm only seeing 11 likes, so make sure you like the video, and obviously you can send super chats as well. Go on.
On Ben's point, you could say that, if he was saying Nigel is a divisive figure, that's very true. There's people who like him. There's also plenty of people who hate him. I think that works in his favour a lot at the moment, when both the Tories and Labour are so unpopular. The idea of just a candidate who is just an FU is appealing.
It's quite funny to think about that Farage is actually probably the least divisive leader in all the parties at the moment. Literally less divisive than Starmer, less divisive than Badenoch.
Oh well, no, I wouldn't. No, he's more divisive because he's got people who like him. Starmer and Badenoch have nobody who likes them, so divisive
you know
is
what?
when there's a split.
You know what? You've got me there. You've put me in a corner. Well done. But bring back Ben Habib and bring back Rupert Lowe. I don't think that's happening, my man. But anyway, we'll finish off.
I think that at some point it would actually be quite good optics if there could have been a sort of a positive reckoning, or a sort of a coming together at some point later on.
Oh,
I think that not necessarily that they rejoin the party, but they kind of sort of shake hands and agree to move forward, kind of thing.
We are so far past that.
My dream.
But I'm saying vibes.
My dream is Lowe, Habib, and Nigel both deporting Zaya. All deporting Zaya together, coming together. That's the dream.
I think people are starting to gather what I mean by Zaya derangement syndrome, but there we go. Anyway, we'll finish off this clip.
Yeah, no, I actually firmly find myself falling into this camp because, like you said, not only at one point when Nigel Farage wasn't leading it peaked at 21% of a poll.
I still have no idea what he was referring to with that. There's getting polls wrong, and there's at no point in before the election did they even get above 18%. So I've no idea where he got that from. I couldn't even tell you what he was thinking about. But
it could have been some outlier poll. You see sometimes.
Well, I did it in the video. I went through the whole record of all the polling results. Couldn't find. This is what I mean. They never got above 18%, even post Farage. So I've let alone before it.
Maybe it was a mix-up with a Tory result.
It's the less offensive thing he said. The more offensive thing was, I agree with you, Ben Habib, that Nigel Farage is a problem for reform.
I think we all agree that Carl's ability to actually do research is a little bit lacking.
Well, he's a man who thinks Thatcher and Powell didn't get on. He also, for some reason, thinks Powell wasn't a liberal. But my God, if he said that, it's going to be a hell of a video tomorrow. Who told me that? Dabblebot, can you? I hope you're in the Discord. Please link that video. I need to go through it. I can't let that go. Anyway, Obviously, this is way earlier, but this is another example, kind of large-scale example of the reform, derangement syndrome that I saw.
Oh, I'd forgotten about this.
The old Elon Musk tweet of the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes, which again, in hindsight, is one of the funniest things you could probably tweet.
73 million views.
But it's all the replies as well. You got Connor Tomlinson there saying, what did he say? When I wrote this article in November, and we've been through the Connor Tomlinson article as well, which we basically came to the conclusion of there's an awful lot of just stuff he's made up in there about what reform are and what they represent. And every time he says, "Oh, my reform friends," they all say this. Bit of insider information. I've met one of these friends of Connor Tomlinson. Basically, just didn't happen. It's a complete. It's a public persona, and from what I understand, Connor's whole shtick is effectively to try and place himself to the right of the Overton window to make him seem forward-thinking. I think it's a long-term game to effectively get him as a thought leader of the right. I wouldn't trust him with a 10-foot barge pole personally, but there we go.
Did Elon Musk ever actually explain where this came from?
No.
He just tweeted it and he never responded to anything.
He's never personally explained it. I know... Well, you go first, Tharium.
I think it's because the Tommy Tards have quite an influence in America.
That's definitely part of it.
He's more... The Tommy Tards have more... they're more well-known. So this was all about Tommy Robinson. They all kicked off.
I think it's partly that. I think it's probably mainly that. What's he called? Nigel Farage has explained in an interview, I can't remember with who, about this, and he said he's seen Elon Musk since, and effectively, I think he worded it like Elon Musk wanted him to go down some policy routes that he wasn't willing to go down. They've had the conversation, and it basically sounds like it's not going to happen again. Though, given with how well Farage is doing, I imagine the winner spirit will be awakening in the American right with him again. So you might see more positive things said about him in the near future. Who knows?
Also, I think Connor Tomlinson has quite a career ahead of him because he does have that twink look that's popular.
Right, I get you. I don't, not to be too harsh or anything, but I don't particularly like Connor Tomlinson. I don't think he's very good at what he does, but
I don't know. I used to really dislike him, and then as he sort of moved away from the Lotus Eaters, I've come to kind of enjoy him a little bit more.
Isn't he just saying the same things he was saying at the Lotus Eaters anyway?
No. I mean, before he left the Lotus Eaters, but after he had become less.
I've gone back and forth on him as well. Yeah,
I
think overall, I think he's harmless though.
It's not so much now that I'm worried about. It's how it's. I'm very worried about effectively the right wing ecosystem in Britain with how a lot of people who want to be thought leaders are acting at the moment. But yeah, I mean, you got Konstantin Kiss in here. Unironically, probably better than most of the people who self-declare as right wing.
he ultimately is,
which isn't great.
It's not the worst it could be. I guess it's kind of like the Farage argument, right? It's like it could definitely be worse.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't roll the dice again. I'll put it that way.
No. I think this is fine because they are sort of milquetoast enough that they are fine for essentially like question time and that kind of thing. But then they also do push more than your average like right pundit like in the news and stuff. So.
But yeah, I mean, here's more derangement, I guess you could put it. Sammy Woodhouse, who she's never liked Farage from what I can tell. She's on the Tommy side of things. I think she worked for him actually. Rupert Lowe needs to be leader. She now works for Rupert Lowe. Steve Law's obviously there. Who's that? Dunno. Carl Benjamin,
that's
of
the thing.
course.
You say about you're concerned about right-wing thought leaders. Nobody cares about right-wing thought leaders. Nobody votes for right-wing thought leaders.
It's true. Actually, we care about it. That's about it.
I mean, would you?
Nobody knows
Hang
these
on,
people.
hang on. Roger Scruton was absolutely influential to the Tories. Let's say.
How many people know who Roger Scruton is?
It doesn't really
I was
matter.
gonna say,
doesn't matter. We're getting into elite theory stuff. It's what I'm saying.
I think it does matter to some extent. Like the fact of the matter is that I don't know what the Latin term is, but like essentially the argument from authority, it kind of is it is valid to an extent, because yes, the reason that we are even hiring, voting for hiring politicians is, in theory, they should have all of the political theory, the thought leaders. They should be the one with the political and philosophical legacy. So your average person, actually, yeah, they have no idea who Roger Scruton is. But the scary thing is how many conservatives, how many MPs know who Roger Scruton is. And I think that's where it starts getting very scary.
Right wing ones are the ones you should only care about. I would imagine, I don't know, Tory Rebuttal will know better, but I still imagine most of them.
I mean, you mentioned Roger Scruton.
Yeah.
Or John Locke or something.
Did he really have an influence on the Tories?
Tory Rebuttal.
So I think sometimes Roger Scruton's overplayed a little bit.
I can't really see his influence in much of the Tories in their
to be
policies.
fair, I just used it as an example because we mentioned it. So you could pick
another
thought leader if you want. Yeah.
Picking Harry.
Roger Scruton has had a bigger influence since his death, because he actually was a little bit more he was mainstreamed a little bit more than he had been before.
I don't think he wanted Boris Wave.
Well, no, but
all right. Let's put it this way: when Rishi Sunak became PM, who was it? James Forsyth from The Spectator. He was his advisor. Ruined everything. That's going to be Connor Tomlinson's route: is talk a load of stuff online. His main appeal actually is that he writes for the mainstream sometimes, and you get someone who doesn't know his past well enough, but is recommended by whoever. So that's when you get issues. That's what I'm talking about.
Isn't Mel Stride supposed to be the main thought leader behind Kemi?
And who knows who that is?
Okay. You have clearly never met Mel Stride if you say that.
This is what I've heard.
Well, Tory Rebuttal.
Sorry, are you just making this up?
Better than anyone. Yeah, you're trolling Tharium.
Is this a joke?
It might have been
okay, I want to explain to you something, right? Do you remember when Mel Stride, for some reason, everybody else had been fired, and Mel Stride was made leader of the House of Commons at one point during
Yeah.
Who was that?
I think it was actually and I was like, wait a minute, somebody just gave Mel Stride a position in government. This is not going to end well. And then for some reason, he's still in the shadow cabinet now. But I don't understand it. I remember when the election happened, and he almost lost his seat by he gets it by 60 votes or something. And to put it in context, Mel Stride, if you ever look it up, did have one of the largest majorities of any politician ever, in 2019. And so to go from that to 2024, where he almost lost his seat, is so embarrassing.
I think he might be the current Michael Gove.
People said that before Kemi was leader, that Mel Stride might run in the leadership election.
I mean, how embarrassing is that?
Who is this guy?
I mean, he went from a nobody at the beginning of 2024 to being
leader of the House of Commons.
Well, yeah, and it was just very funny.
Yeah. Well, it sounds it. But anyway, I've got a lot of tabs to get through. So there's some online influencers who absolutely are. Wolf is probably the worst one that I could find, to be fair. So, but the least influential, I would add. So, Wolf will do this type of thing where whatever my pet issue is, Nigel Farage has to say something on it, and I see this quite a lot. Rubber's also another person who does this, by the way.
I can appreciate this. The Vatican has an anime waifu, and the Reform do not have an anime waifu. So I think that Farage needs to start talking about anime waifus.
I mean, oh no,
Do they really?
Oh no, yeah.
Well, at least the
I
last
haven't-
Pope did. Yeah.
The-
The
Yeah, I haven't
Vatican involved.
seen. I haven't seen her since the new Pope's been in power, so he may have pushed her down the
I
back
don't,
of the sofa.
I don't know if he would have. To be fair, it was a little mascot. I thought it was cute.
My favourite.
At least it was a little girl, not a little boy, is what I'd say.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Go on.
I liked when somebody forgot they were on the papal Twitter account, the official papal Twitter account, and was
Started
liking
liking.
posts from an OnlyFans.
Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, back on topic. So Wolf brings up, whatever you think of the Homeland Party, they're registered with the Electoral Commission, and it's perfectly within anyone's right to join and to campaign for them. Nigel Farage should be standing up for John Carr, but he won't because he's too scared of rocking the SW1 boat. When in reality, it's just Nigel Farage has a million and one things better to do than make a statement on, frankly, this guy who's just some guy who, has probably shouldn't be questioned over this.
I don't know. I think that's okay. Like some of these things, like Nigel's done a bunch of these videos where it's like a little 1 minute thing saying obvious bad thing is bad. I don't think they hurt.
They don't hurt. They don't take long. They don't hurt. But it still takes time out of his day. And with especially when was this done? This was May the 1st. This was the election day. I don't think he's going to take time out of his day to comment on this on election day. It's not like the worst example it's not the. I think the worst, obviously, is going back to Carl Benjamin was his thing of have two British flags and wood panelling behind you and what have you. And I was like, do you understand he's on the road all the time?
Keir Starmer did that.
Yeah, Keir Starmer's in number 10 when he does that.
Speech.
He did do that.
I'm a racist speech.
He did do that,
got
but
his wood panelling and flag.
He happens to live in number 10 though, doesn't he? Which has wood panelling and British flags. But it's not the only example. Farage is a sheep in wolf's clothing, just constant counter signalling. Farage is just another leader who despises his followers. The fact that most of his base are sympathetic to the BNP and Britain First. Most of his supporters of these group are not far right. They're just working class white people worried about losing their country.
I think it's worth mentioning my theory that when this guy first showed up on Twitter, before he was getting quite a lot of retweets and everything, I said this guy's foreign. This guy is not British. Well, there's no way. Because he's just pumping out absolute demoralization every second of the day.
Yeah, he's got to be a NEET at least. Just some guy in Lancaster University who does this to avoid the rope. Surely. But I think all of us understand that you can't be spreading BNP stuff online and expect to stay in Reform when they have to keep their nose incredibly clean, if nothing else, just to avoid scandals like their own candidates or whatever going to court. Having said that, they do have a MP who has a criminal record, but still, by the by, they're professionalised now.
Dead End Satellite, I love you. Thank you so much.
What did he do?
Put it. Look in the memes in Discord.
Right, he's done a waifu thing. Discord link should work now, by the way. What's this one? Counter-terror police searched several migrant hotels for the terrorists who entered Britain illegally as part of a plot to attack the Israeli embassy. The online far right, as Nigel Farage has called us, has predicted this for years. This is another thing that a lot of them do. They'll say, oh, we said a thing first. And then when you look into it, it's stuff Nigel Farage has said for years. Nigel Farage did an entire bit on GB News of an illegal immigrant coming over threatening to kill him. And he got arrested.
And that guy was literally a walking red flag.
Well, yeah, he had an AK on his face.
Yeah.
So, I think we can all agree this is pretty crazy Nigel Farage derangement syndrome. I say it forever. There's reasons to criticise Farage and Reform and what have you. Some of it can be asinine, some of it can be poignant. The online right, especially this Wolf character is definitely the worst of it. it is just, as you said before, Tory Rebuttal, demoralisation, like on steroids. That's all he posts. It's nothing but don't trust Farage, he's terrible. And then it's either things that Farage doesn't actually do, or asking Farage to do things that are basically a waste of time, from what I can tell.
Do you remember that 3-week period where he was pretending to be in Reform?
Yeah, I remember that.
And
yeah.
he was like, oh yeah, I really like Reform now. They're really good. And then it took about 2 weeks for him to go, actually, no, I'm joining the Homeland Party. And I'm like, oh.
Did Wolf join Homeland?
No, he just started picking them up, I think. But
of course he did.
Claimed to.
He's Indian. He can't join them.
But I just wanted to quickly go over Wolf because, as I say, he's kind of like the perfect online only section of this derangement syndrome. Because next up we have Nick Dixon, who I have not liked for some time. So I was the first.
I don't know about him. I only
he's on
knew
GB
about
News
him,
and a comedian. Go on.
That's the weird thing though, because I only knew about him from Lotus Eaters. Like I barely even noticed that he was on GB News, and I didn't know that he had a job outside of those.
Yeah, he's a podcaster as well, I think. But another kind of level of derangement syndrome that I see is, I was the first to say Farage become Prime Minister unless someone can beat him in October 2023. Seems obvious now, but certainly wasn't at the time. Just gutted I put the Tory bit in there, because he was saying, Farage will become a Tory leader and win the general election. He said it a couple of times. And he said this just after the locals, so basically there seems to be a common thread that they will whinge and moan about Farage for stupid reasons. I'll admit sometimes there's decent reasons too, it's fine. I'm not going into any of that for this particular stream, because I don't want to. But it's mostly nonsense. And then when Farage starts doing really well, they'll kind of pretend that they weren't counter-signaling him for 6 months. Probably not that long, but for months at a time. It's nuts.
Sorry, Aaron. I was just going to say that's actually, I think, the thing that gets me #triggered. It isn't necessarily the counter-signaling per se, because I can always do devil's advocate and say that there are some concerns which are warranted, even if they aren't necessarily warranted in to the extent that they seem to think it is. The whole containment narrative. There's a kernel of truth which kind of does hold true, whereas whether it actually is true is still, it's unlikely, but yet to be seen. But it's that kind of it's that absolute 180 that you get, where it's just like we're just going to carry on as if I didn't say those things. It's like when I was talking rubbish, and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, let's just move on. The quid it's literally the online version of, do you remember Kamala Harris? Didn't you call Biden a racist? Or she was like, oh, it was a debate. So wait,
oh my god, did I invite her here?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, it was a debate, cackle. And it's just like, oh, so wait, so you didn't mean anything that you said. That's the vibe that I get, and that actually annoys me more than the counter signaling. Sorry, that's my bet.
No, it's fun. I know I'm a reform activist, so I'm always why I quite like our discords is because we have people like Tory Rebuttal in there who's he knows an awful lot more about modern day politics than any of us, I'd say. It's good to have Tharium in there because I like somewhat sensible but sometimes deranged people in there to keep me entertained. But you do throw out decent stuff every now and then.
Future.
I don't think that's quite true.
Yeah, we are.
And then Cero's there kind of as my blank canvas because he usually goes, oh, what's this about? And I'm like, oh, let me explain. So it keeps me updated. I am the wild card. So as much as I am definitely on the more kind of Farage simp side, and I'm well aware of that, I don't think I'm particularly saying anything here that's going the other direction of Farage worship, so to speak. I think things have got so bad that this does need to be addressed, though. Because, obviously, these clips come up all the time as well, because as mentioned, Nick Dixon will be like, oh, I was always on Farage's side, but then I'll counter-signal, kind of misinterpret what Farage is saying, and I think I've said it in the past of, I think I've called Carl malicious on this level. Would I stick by that? Maybe. I don't quite know. it is possible he's just monstrously stupid as well.
I stand by probably unnecessarily at this point, but I stand by the point that he's just that bitter.
Bitter as well. Well, I mean, if he is bitter, I'd put it more on the malicious side.
I don't know. I think he's getting over it. Like I said, he did volunteer his to help with reform early on, and just got
did
quite
he?
bluntly turned down. Yeah.
What did he
when
do?
They sort of first, he just reached out to Tice and Nigel, going, if you like, I want to try and help any sort of support I can give, and he was just quite bluntly blocked, which you don't have to do. And I know why they did, but you can when people are reaching out to help, even if you don't, you can just be a bit more polite.
I wouldn't be shocked if they were shown that this is what he did in UKIP. It's like, as you say, you understand it, but you don't have to be that like that about it. They could have muted him. I think
they could have done you've at the moment you've got a past. We understand you've moved on from it, but at the moment we're just trying to get things sorted or something.
They could have just not. Not replying is better than blocking. Yeah.
You don't need to make people enemies when they're trying to help you.
I don't know. I'm on a tightrope of, do I say that it might actually be a good thing to just completely blacklist kind of publicly the Lotus Eaters? Well, I don't know if I go that far.
Like Carl's, I feel like Carl's a good man though, and in his recent thing about the because they came out with some policies, right? And Carl was going, this all sounds good. He was sort of on board with it. He just he just has reasonable doubts about if Nigel is the person who can actually deliver it.
I wish that's how he was more of the time then.
He's getting over it, but I think he's fair.
Well, we'll see. But on Nick, I mean, it wasn't just Nick Dixon that did this, but here's another Farage clip that it's one of the ones that went around everywhere.
But the nub of it is...
Oh, that's really loud.
We have a Muslim population in Britain growing by about 75% every 10 years, right?
I think actually that people didn't really... It's something that people in the community here did bring up at the time. This is basically talking about demographics, saying you're worried about it without actually doing that openly.
That was my point.
Was that your point? I can't remember if it was you or John. But someone put it on Twitter that effectively, it was before I really, I mean, it's not really coining the term, it's what everyone calls derangement syndrome, but before I started saying Farage derangement syndrome, that someone basically said that people can't even enjoy a good dog whistle anymore, they just hate him that much. I want to be that dishonest about him. It's like, I'm seeing that quite a lot, actually.
I think this was a very odd reaction a lot of people had to this. And it was because I didn't realise at the time that they were doing it because they already had Farage derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
This isn't what caused it.
No.
It's just that they were being very outspoken about this. And I didn't quite realise that at the time.
Yeah.
That they were just using this clip as an excuse to go after him.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with the theory that basically everyone... an awful lot of people either wants to be head of the right, or if not head of the right, at least have a chance to, be in reform to some description. But obviously, after the whole Lotus Eaters got kicked out of reform incident, Nick Dixon's obviously on their side, and with the Rupert Lowe thing, like that all just catalysed, and then obviously the whole Tommy Robinson thing as well.
Well, this was before Lowe got kicked out.
Yeah, it was. No. This was This was after the election, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and
this was winter.
Yeah.
Part of my cope at this time was that, well, whatever he says, we've still got base Rupert Lowe in.
Yes.
But then it turns out
I've lost that now. So now I'm not so trusting.
Yeah, now it's base Aya Yusuf.
But this is what started the unraveling with Lowe, because it was when everyone was going after Farage for this. Then Rupert Lowe would come out with little sayings like that sounded a little bit more extreme, and
I'm pretty sure there's.
And then everyone went, why can't Rupert Lowe be the leader of reform? And that was what then caused the rift between Nigel and Rupert.
I don't know if it was necessarily the leader thing. I think it was more the fact he was, as you say, I think it was the bit before that where he's almost counter-signaling the party of like, no, I want to go way further. And he actually he started using the magic words, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, he says now that Farage even told him to take a sentence out of his speech.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, who knows? But
I can imagine it's true because I think the sentence had mass deportations in it. I don't think it was the sentence. I think it was just the words. Which, if that's the case, that's even kind of even more pathetic, to be honest. But yeah, the Rupert Lowe thing that accelerated Farage derangement syndrome. But I think it definitely existed before the general election. Certainly, the seeds were there to be sown.
I mean, and that's not entirely unwarranted either, because Nigel has been very flaky.
He's very divisive.
He's been very flaky. No, anytime like in the UKIP days, all these things, when it's like, now's your chance to be leader, Nigel. Take it. He gets very flaky and goes, I don't know.
I am not being funny. I would absolutely trust that man to be Prime Minister more than anyone else. It's one of those things of the person you want to be Prime Minister is a person who doesn't want the job.
I know, but you get what I'm saying. Like he's sort of in the past when it's like it's been his moment, he's gone, I don't know. So you can see like
I'm not entirely sure because I'm thinking, Brexit. What realistically did he or could he do after that? Because he wasn't joining the Tories, he wasn't getting anywhere. There's no point getting in with UKIP. That wasn't going to go anywhere. He left UKIP after Tommy Robinson joined it.
There was the other Brexit Party elections where he stood down hundreds of candidates for Boris.
Oh,
right?
God, yeah, but everyone thought that was a good idea at the time.
I know. But you can see, but looking back
as an example.
No, but looking back, you can see like. I'm just saying where I think they sort of might have been coming from all this before.
But I think I'd argue it's a bit disingenuous to berate Farage for doing something we basically all thought was a good idea because we all trusted Boris at the time, which obviously was a mistake. Knowing Tory Rebuttal, he didn't trust Boris at the time. I don't know. I'm throwing that out. Oh no, even Tory Rebuttal.
I can't remember.
Even Tory Rebuttal may have been tricked, so that's how good he was. But
to be fair, though, like just as an aside, because obviously I voted for him at that election. Mm-hmm. None of us were actually tricked at the beginning. I don't think that he was like a sleeper or anything like that. I think it legit something just broke him during especially around the COVID time. I genuinely think something just snapped in him.
What do you think about the idea that they killed him in COVID? And his hospital trip was actually them replacing him with a new lizard person in a suit.
I don't. Okay, if they're all lizard people,
you make a compelling argument.
Yeah.
It makes as much sense as anything else. To be fair.
Look. I've tried to explain this to you guys, and I know I don't do a very good job of explaining it, but the simplest explanation is just that it's really difficult being Prime Minister. And the problem with Boris is that he didn't have anything he wanted to do. And so unless you really want to do something that you really want to push it through and you want to force the MPs to vote for it,
I actually agree with you.
You can just go with the flow very easily and then go, oh, well, this week we're doing this and this week we're doing this. But nothing ever actually happens.
Oh my God, he said it. He said it. He said nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens.
But the thing is, you're absolutely right, because you compare it to, say, for example, when Trump gets in, he knows what he's doing. He's got his pen ready for the executive orders.
Trump didn't do that, right?
Well, on the second time he did. The first time he did.
Well, I'm saying, but the first time it was all wasted. It's 4 years wasted. Yeah. The second time, people around Trump realized if they don't get it done in the first 2 weeks, it's not happening.
Yeah. And I think that the problem is that you look at Boris, literally the policy that he got in on wasn't actually his policy. It was Farage's policy, effectively. And
so, I wouldn't go that far. But
I would.
No, because the deal, the oven-ready deal, was actually Nigel Farage said it was a bad idea. He counter-signaled it. and then rightly so in a lot of ways, because he was able to see what was going to end up happening with Northern Ireland. But no, I mean, Boris Johnson ran that, had the election or tried to get the election because he needed the majority in Parliament to pass the Brexit deal. That was it.
It was that and keep Corbyn out. That was the other reason, which was a very, very good reason. Yeah. Yeah. At the time, but this is, to get back to the point, all these examples of Nigel Farage kicks people out who he doesn't like, and all these examples of, he just won't take, take his destiny, I think, as Carl puts it.
But let's remember, I mean, a lot of these people, as Tharium was saying, have a very long history with Farage. And that's the problem, is that he's been around for so long and he's created so many enemies for himself that these people just get a bit obsessed with hating him.
Yeah, and I think it's making an awful lot of people look very stupid. That's what this whole video is. I mean, there's a guy in the chat saying there is no name derangement syndrome. It doesn't exist in psychology. Yeah, this isn't a deep, professional psychological study. This is just laughing at people who are idiots.
if you feel very strongly about it, I can take a dig. I can dig up the correct psychological term for
I'm
you.
I'm not that bothered. These are just bitter people.
It's probably something tangential to cognitive dissonance, if we're going to be specific.
That's retarded.
I'm trying to avoid words like that, but
I did accidentally swear earlier. Sorry, I dropped my microphone.
It's all right. It's all right. If I ever need to, I can just nuke the channel. But anyway, we'll carry on with this clip, which, as we said before, was I think it was you, Tory Rebuttal, said before. You just didn't understand why people had an issue with it, but Anyway, we'll carry on.
That's just where we are.
Go on, Tharium.
Carry on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. For certain.
If we politically alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. We'll lose.
So how does one include them?
We will lose by 2050. Goodness knows what kind of a terrible state we're going to be in.
So, my interpretation of this has always been, you're kind of crossing the Rubicon if we're talking about the demographics question, especially with the way our voting system works, and especially with the fact that Commonwealth countries like Pakistan get a vote straight away as soon as they're over here.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing you can really do is make voting a demographic headcount, because in some areas you're just never getting them back, as we have seen obviously with the sectarian politicians.
You're never going to get them back no matter what. You've got to deport them. That's the only way you get these areas back.
No. Well,
wait, do you think that lot are ever going to vote for the right-wing nationalists?
You can set up incentives so they want to go back instead of mass deporting.
I mean, some ways they already vote for a right-wing nationalist party.
Well, that's also true.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that the other strange thing is that if you look at, for example, like me and Mike's sort of extended family, we kind of are voting for the I guess, what would you call it, the right-wing nationalist party, despite not being. So it kind of is that very strange. It is a very strange position that we're in, but
yeah, but you're not in an ethnic enclave wearing a burqa.
No, I was going to say I do have some ethnic enclaves not that far from me, but not burqa related, or at least not yet.
So he says. But I mean, back to the topic at hand. Obviously, this was a clip that went around everywhere, along with the other clip of him going on about, I don't want to do mass deportations, which he doesn't have mass. If we're having a go at right-wing journalists today, Steve Edgington's another that I just do not like. I do not want him
To be fair, he didn't say that he didn't want to do it at all, didn't he? He just said he didn't want to talk about it.
He said you got to start somewhere.
He said it was not possible.
He said it was not possible.
No. I think he said political impossibility, didn't he?
He said political impossibility. That's how he phrased it, and he said you have to start somewhere. And as I always ask people, start what exactly? But
yeah,
I mean,
because political impossibility is basically saying, can I get people and also other politicians to sign off on my thing, right?
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, that was he did say these things, and that is bad. And now, whatever Coke was coming up with for him saying that, then it now doesn't apply, because now he's going, yeah, actually, yeah, we're going to get rid of millions in the first 5 years.
Well, no, hang on, right? He said it at a time before he was taken seriously by people like Dominic Cummings, Liz Truss, and far many more people in the civil service. And from there, they've obviously helped him develop a plan where actually, maybe it is a possibility. I still don't think he's going to say the words mass deportations, though, because as I keep going on,
I don't know why.
It's because it's a big.
Get so fussed about that.
About saying it.
Yeah,
it's because
or not saying or not saying. Like, to any normal person, mass deportation just means lots of deportation.
Well, the problem is...
That's what you want, isn't it?
Well, the problem is that it's one of the most obvious bottom Baileys in the world. And you start saying mass deportations, you're going to get... What's going to happen is you're going to be associated with Homeland, with UKIP, and they've been saying some absolutely crazy stuff. It's a distinction from them. That's the main thing.
Nigel is now saying, yeah, we want lots of deportations.
Yes, but he's not saying mass deportations. It's the magic word thing.
Yeah, but only to like a handful of weirdos, right? Nobody's saying, oh, we're going to get rid of millions of illegal immigrants in 5 years, and thinks, at least it's not mass deportations.
Well, I'll put it this way. Adam Wren, who's another person I don't trust, by the way, but Adam Wren, I don't know if you all know him. He's a Twitter account. I think he works for a think tank. He's been on GB News a couple of times. He spent 800 Musk bucks to. He got a polling company to run a poll on people, and he at no point in the poll did it say mass deportation. Nowhere did it say it, and then he sold it as this is mass deportation. Now I understand your point of yes, it's like saying what does diversity mean, Tharium? What does diversity mean?
If he'd have put mass deportations, it would have been the same result.
I don't think we can say that, and I don't agree. It sounds for lack of
normal people.
I think normal people will unironically take it as a bit too Nazi. I unironically think that mass deportation
compared to I'm going to deport millions of illegal immigrants in 5 years.
Yes, the vibes are everything.
Really?
I genuinely.
I don't think anyone sees a difference.
The big difference is the word illegal.
Oh, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, you can say mass deportation of illegals. That was like, is there a difference?
To us, no, but to the normie, potentially.
Does it give ammo? Will it give ammo
and
allow an association between Reform and, say, Homeland or UKIP, who are
I'm going to mass deport all illegals. I'm going to deport all illegals.
If you
is there a difference?
Hang on, didn't you say before you don't really care about the wording? Like, he doesn't have to say mass deportation. Yeah, but you don't.
No, but you're like saying like Nigel seems hung up on that word. I just don't get it.
It's fine not to get it.
Nobody sees a difference.
As long as you get the same result, why do you care? Which you don't, to be fair, but other people.
Which is the normal thing.
Yeah.
I think that the reason that we care, like, even though again I'm not really that fussed about the magic words per se, but I think that it is like the irony from the people counter signaling. The reason that they want Farage to say it is because then at least he'll be signaling that actually he is on board, but in a way that the online have kind of decided that is the way that it needs to be described. And I think that also the valid reason to why we actually want, because part of me actually kind of wants him to start using that rhetoric. I also understand why he might not necessarily want to. But it is the fact that if you don't, if you don't commit to a hard it's essentially pushing the boat out further than you need to, so that when the boat inevitably gets pulled back to shore, you don't just get pulled right back to shore. It's kind of like it's like the Cthulhu swims left. If you only say that we're going to do something, a small measure, then the small measure can be sort of countered by the time you've actually made any good point. And I think that that's the valid part of the fear about him not signaling.
And this is the whole thing, is that this is what people say about the Conservative Party, is that yes, they say some good things, but if they're only going to do 10% of them, then when the Labour Party get in, they'll just reverse them all. You need to go further to make it irreversible. Which is sort of true in a lot of ways.
Like Trump's thing, promising, like, this was my point earlier, but the vibes of these things. Like Trump promising, 20 million all gone. He's not going to be able to do that, right? But the point is, that's his goal. That's the plan he's aiming for, which is what counts for people.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and I think that
I don't think his aim is to get 20 million out, but I know what you mean. Go on, sir.
Yeah, he said that. Well, that's what he has said.
He said 20 million.
Yeah, 20 million illegal immigrants, which is what they currently think there is. There's probably more, but
all right, that's fine. Go on, sorry.
But no, I'm kind of just reinforcing the point that it's the. I guess we're also just trying to measure just how committed. Like, how committed are you? Like, are you if you're not, and also it's like if you're not willing to at least show commitment to a small amount, then it's not a surprise that you've got people who are either sort of neurotic or maybe more skittish, like I am, or if you've got people who are more malicious, on the dark right, they're going to start talking about containment. They are going to start talking about this, that, and the other. And simply because it's like, well, we're not sure that you're loyal because of the way that we on the online right especially, have decided loyalty to be measured. And I think that's one of the problems that we have. Yeah, signaling. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you're not using the words of the niche in group that we've generated, then you're not one of us. And if you're not one of us, you can't be trusted. And the problem is that the one of us, the group they've created, is not something that Farage wants to join.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be one of them because there's 5 of them and they're not important.
But we're really cool.
The irony is,
cool, though.
No, they're full of femboys. What do you mean? Go on, sir.
I'm sure some femboys can be cool. I mean, I wouldn't know. But do you want to know what's kind of cringe? Do you know what the equivalent of this is?
What?
Pronouns.
Yeah. That's a signaling. That's definitely a signaling phenomenon.
So also another thing that I saw today when they tried to say that woke right Discord, the woke right discourse has been like it's over or something. It's like, no, it's conceptually, like, it's not. If we're in a situation where we're fighting over like right-wing pronouns effectively, then no, we are not over that.
Well, that's why I started calling it magic words, because it's like you're being pathetic. I had a load of Homelanders do it all the time, and thank God they've disintegrated, because I don't get this anymore. But they'd always be like, why don't you say mass deportation? Why don't the Farage say it? Don't you want mass deportation? I just say, I'm not playing your word games. I don't care about your magic words. I've told you specifically what I want, and Farage has said what he will do. Because not only is it right-wing signalling to, well, online right signaling to a niche group that's just full of weirdos. The other issue is that it's basic, because it's the most obvious Mott and Bailey in the world. It's just giving the media free ammo. Why give your enemy free ammo? There's no point.
That was the whole reason that he didn't want to say it in that particular interview, because he literally just said it. I think he literally says it in the same interview, right? He's like, I'm not going to say it because literally, tomorrow or whatever, it's going to be all over the news.
He says, that's what he says about mass deportations. It's like, it's going to be all over the news. I'm going to be taken out of context. It's just pointless giving them that ammo, which is the other reason for it, which I'm totally on board with. That's why Tharium's position's fine. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have to care about it. It's like, blame that on the media landscape then. It's fine. I'll take that.
Well, step over the media.
It's not going to work. You can't do that.
He started doing it.
You do it a bit at a time.
Once you get to a certain point in the polls, you can start doing it. And that's what's really interesting about this period of time.
Yeah.
Which is that Farage has taken the local election results and has been a little bit bolder because of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think you're seeing, especially it's maybe just my perception, but I would think Reform HQ have the same perception I have, which is that their vote is kind of hardening. These people aren't just one election, I'm going to vote for Reform just as a protest vote. These are people who are now indebted to Farage personally.
Yeah. Being honestly, going out and leafleting with the people I met as well, those that were like loads of people were outwardly just saying like reform's now basically my core vote. Like I'll be voting for you forever. Let me get your leaflets. I'll throw them around the hotel or whatever, the apartment building. Yeah. So it's because I was speaking to a few people who were out leafleting, in DMs and what have you, and it's all the same story. I mean, we all thought like 400 councils is a realistic goal, and then we hit nearly 700. It's councillors, sorry. And yeah, this is why. It's as Tory Rebuttal says. It's definitely hardening, and now it's kind of a case, because he's certainly been trying to widen his net of who can vote for us, and this is why he's taken on some Lib Dem councillors and things like that. Which is another thing that Farage deranged people are like,
yeah.
Why is he doing
and again,
that?
that's not unreasonable entirely, is it?
What, letting
Yeah,
Lib
like,
Dems?
the wrong way.
Like I don't like him taking on Tory defectors. Really, it's like these people who screwed us over.
Commies and commies adjacent. They're the ones I'm concerned about.
It is interesting.
Well, that's Tories.
You got to bear in mind as
And Lib Dems.
well. I have heard it from about 3 separate people now in interviews. Yeah, they're all in reform, so it might be party line, but they do reject people. You just don't hear about the rejections. Like they say, the claim is that they've rejected about 70% of people wanting to defect. There's quite a famous another Farage deranged person, Tom Jones, not the singer. I think he's a councillor. Yeah, Tory Rebuttal.
Didn't he lose his council seat?
Or did he lose it? I think he was one of the people who tried to defect, but you just look at his timeline and it's full of Farage counter signaling, and they were probably like, nah. I genuinely suspect that happened because everything he says is on Farage's side, is kind of parallel with reform, but then he's a bit of a party man, but then he's also obviously online right as well, so it's a kind of a toxic mixture that meant, you're not joining. That's pure speculation, I have no idea, but you're not going to build... There's no way you're building a national party without some people from the other parties getting on board, especially the Tories. But you never know. Jenrick might have asked to join and they've said no. I doubt it, but you never know.
He's got more chance in Conservatives, really, for him.
Yeah. This... Oh, go on.
Yeah, I mean, this video, though, back to that, I mean, it's not good. Saying we've got to appeal to Muslim voters. That's
not what it is.
I know, but you
can't alienate all of them.
We can try and think, well, he's actually saying this, but I mean, for the people who are complaining, he did say that, right?
Well, isn't this what we always say though? That actually we do want immigrants to integrate.
Yeah.
And
if you're trying to appeal, how do you appeal to Muslim voters? You give them.
You don't push them away by being completely anti-Islam. You have to find a way.
Well, then you can't. You can't
of making them proud to be British.
Yeah, by giving in to what they want, giving them all their halal stuff, call to prayer, all their just integrating Islam into our culture rather than
halal.
Telling them,
we've allowed kosher for quite some time, and that's worse than halal.
We can get rid of both.
Worse.
Yeah.
I love how much people
you say this
how
like
their animals are killed when they eat them. It does.
Well, yeah.
You don't. I don't believe it. I will. It was probably one of my unpopular opinions, but I don't believe anyone really cares how animals are killed when you're going to eat them. I don't think.
I mean, I don't. But
I can say that we do because we have. I mean, you are right. There is a level of hypocrisy to it, right? For example, if you're culling your own livestock, you care. If you go out to a restaurant, you don't care at all. Like, I'm not asking the person at the restaurant whether, did the calamari, I hear that they actually are able to have conscious thought or something like that, before munching them down.
Yeah.
No, but that's not true. We actually do that through the medium of having strict animal welfare laws.
Yeah,
sure.
I will never
treat ours
knowingly,
better than the French.
Yeah. I will never knowingly eat kosher or halal.
I mean, that's your choice and that's fine. But
I don't know why.
That's a lot of people's choice. That's most people's choice.
I don't think
we also
you always claim most people. I don't think most people care. Stop saying that.
Yeah, they do. They do.
What do you mean? Yeah, they do. What's your evidence for that?
Everyone, come on, we are
gonna
not.
say
What do
we
you mean?
animals
Oh,
as
everyone. Oh, come on. You just know it. No, I don't.
Yeah,
Show me
we're nuts about animal
polling.
welfare.
Yeah, and
Ask the
ask
British about
people.
animal welfare.
is it? I think it's
No, if you
70.
ask people, they'll say they care, but the actual revealed preference in their shopping habits
yeah,
says
that
they
is-
don't.
That is a fair point.
I think. Well, I mean, Atterman's brought up grass-fed and free range as well. Like, those aren't quite what they mean either.
Organic is not what it means.
Yeah, free range.
Grass-
Free range doesn't mean like, they're out in a field or whatever. That usually just means they're not in a
You've got
cage.
2 feet of space. Yeah.
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 Stuff like this.
And organic, I think, means you just didn't use certain types of either pesticide or vaccine or whatever. For
I think
the...
just on the halal thing again though. I think the statistics like 75% of halal slaughtered meat in Britain is stunned before it anyway.
I don't get. We shouldn't be kowtowing to Islam ever in any way.
But that's
the basic
See,
thing. You are
see,
you
so
are the
you
nationalist
just
right-wing party.
You just
Don't
hate
do
the
that.
magic words. You don't care what halal is. You just don't like the word halal.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, that is his right. Like,
that's fine.
This
That's
is-
not going to win
This is
you.
what
That's
this
not
is
going
what
to win
our
you
people
votes.
know. This is what our people have known for 1400 years. This lot are the enemy.
I would
Simple
like-
as.
When was the first mosque in
They
Britain?
don't belong here. 1890.
Funny that.
That's not a
a
long
whole
time.
over a century.
And that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Woke
that,
Victorians
that,
made a mistake.
that pivoted so quickly from that wasn't that long ago. Oh, it's over 100
it's
years.
both.
That's actually quite a while.
No, it's
that
both.
was a mistake.
That wasn't. That's in the history of our people. That's not. That's not. a long
I'm
time.
sorry. That is
it was
what?
still a
How many
mistake.
generations is that? 120 years. That's 6 generations.
4, depending on how.
4.
That's
Do you consider a generation to be 20 or
it's
25?
about, it's about 20 years. 20.
I always
Well,
use-
even if
I
it's
usually-
20, even if it's 25, that's still 5 generations. Yeah.
Yeah, a mistake. That's nothing. Like when some of us have ancestry going back thousands of years.
But if we're talking
I
like
don't know.
British culture's on about 50-year cycle, something like that. Like it's survived.
And it's never had Islam in it. And look, it's
apart
only
from
growing.
2 cycles.
We should
if we
have
put 50 years as the
and
as
it's
the
all
cultural
been growing.
cycle.
It's been growing.
It has been
ever
growing.
since.
It has been growing, and
And
that is
it's
a
been-
problem.
and
But
it's
to
been
say
a
that it's never
disaster.
been accepted is ridiculous. It's been accepted
It
at
has been
least for
accepted.
100 years. If
It
it wasn't
wasn't
accepted,
known
if it wasn't
many-
accepted, we
100
wouldn't
years
have a
ago,
mosque 100 years ago.
Oh, that was probably some woke Victorians going, "Ooh, a mosque! How diverse! Ooh, very exotic."
I am well aware
Am I
of
wrong?
the Jaws position of the Victorians were woke, but no.
Am I wrong? This would have been some Victorians going, "Oh, that's so exotic! How very
They,
interesting."
they probably
That's what
did,
that would have been.
and they were like, you know what,
Yeah.
I'd like that exoticism
That's why
here.
it was a mistake.
That's why they
That was
built,
why it was a mistake. They
and
didn't
that-
know
and-
what they were inviting in.
and that's why they built Brighton Pavilion in a Indian style as well.
Yeah. Also a mistake.
Which one? The one that's falling down, or the other?
I don't think we should have brought Christianity over here. Personally, we should all still be worshipping Woden or whatever the fucking old gods.
For a sec there, I think you were going to say worshipping the Pope. I was just like, this is going very south very quickly.
No, it's just I'm with Tory Rebuttal. It is just a magic words thing. But as Sarah says, it's your right. You're not going to win votes that way.
Yes, you
and I
will.
don't care.
No one likes Islam. No one likes the Muslims. Look at what they've done. They've been an absolute plague.
All I need to do is point you over to UKIP during the Carl days. They very much leaned into this, and it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster, and I don't see why it would be any different this time around.
Because things are worse now.
Things are worse
there's
now, and I still don't think it will
the
work
Tories
out.
and Labour are so incredibly weak now.
I don't see why you would want to shake up something that is working anyway. Like this,
You get better.
I'm
And
s-
they're just wrong. They don't belong.
It could also get a hell of a lot worse, though. To be fair.
Yeah, and it will unless we get rid of them.
Anyway, I'll move on from Islam because it
really
always
quickly,
goes in
chat.
circles.
Let it never be said. Let it never ever be said that we're an echo chamber.
Yeah, we're definitely not, and I don't want that particularly to change. But I am.
I love it.
I am just so fed up of having these circular
I found
conversations.
out about today that Rafe Heidel Menkun, one of his Polish ancestors, was in the cavalry that led the charge at the Siege of Vienna to liberate it from the Muslim. Probably a Winter Tsar, which is very based, and no wonder why he gets that Muslim Tsar problem. I knew I liked him.
Is that right?
I knew I liked him.
New World Forum.
Yeah.
New Culture Forum.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I knew he was a good guy.
I didn't know that he was. Okay, carry on.
Sorry, I just to say. Oh no, you go on.
Part Sikh, part Polish.
The Sikhs, the Sikhs, okay.
The entire Sikh religion, was invented just to oppose the Muslim.
So I thought this as well, and then I looked into it. I can't actually find any source that confirms that.
Well, one of their 5 things is carrying a sword around with you. And it was because of the fact they were in a war with the Mughals at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, but well, I can't find any decent sources that say the entirety, like the religion was founded based on, fighting Islam.
Chris Fisher's Islam simping. What a surprise!
Chris
most of the things that are attributed to Islam are actually Christian, that were in areas that were taken over by Islam.
Oh my!
Just so you know,
it's not going to like that. Spain.
And then once the Islamic takeover was complete, oh look, these places all fall into ruin. Surprise, surprise.
Why does Britain
every time?
Why does Britain get okay Sikhs but Canada get manic Sikhs? I imagine it's the same reason we don't get the best Pakistanis, let's say, but other places tend to get other places tend to get good ones.
I did think of that.
Sorry,
well, it's because they come from specific places. It'll be specific communities they mainly come from. One Sikh will come over here, and from that area they'll bring like family and what have you. Whereas obviously the Canadians got a kind of bad area of wherever the Sikhs are, I would imagine. So there you go. Go on, sorry.
Also, I think that also the Canadians are a little bit more, or like we are quite lenient, but we are a lot less lenient than the Canadians. I think that that's probably true. It seems right to me.
They're going to get so screwed over. I'm going to love seeing it.
That's right.
After the Liberal Party win again. Oh.
I have some family in Canada. I don't want it to be screwed over.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand, which is obviously Nigel Farage derangement syndrome. This is just from today as well with Nick Dixon. Farage is now to the left of Starmer, which is just I can never take these seriously. Here's what he says.
How are we measuring this?
Measuring what exactly? Oh, let's find out. Let's find out.
Yeah, crack on.
Up a few hours ago with Nigel Farage, and
should we?
It's not rocket science that some of that speech was aimed at answering the threat from Reform UK in the local elections. And Nigel Farage thinks it was a big mistake, he says, for the Prime Minister to echo the language of Enoch Powell. He talks about how it was a strategic mistake, and he told me the use of that language was not in Keir Starmer's interest. It's a catastrophic mistake that will divide the left for years to come.
I mean, he's not
correct.
Yeah, that's not Nigel Farage.
From a leftist perspective, yeah, I was going to say from a leftist perspective, that's correct.
Nigel Farage has a history of saying like Enoch Powell's his like ideal politician, like who he wants to emulate effectively, or at least his role model. And yeah, he even tried to get Enoch Powell to support or advocate UKIP back in the day, but obviously he didn't do it because he's a Tory at
heart. Enoch Powell could see through him.
Oh, God. Derangement.
I mean, Enoch Powell by that point was like could barely get out of bed.
Yeah, that's also true. But
I was going to say, how old was he at that point?
It wasn't so much his age; it was the fact he had Parkinson's and his health was deteriorating.
He was in his 80s, wasn't he?
Because you say Enoch Powell, yeah, like. When you say Enoch Powell, I'm almost thinking like my brain makes me think it's like Victorian or something, but no, he was around when Thatcher was around, right?
Basically, he
was born in the 1920s.
He fought in World War II.
He was old.
Yeah. He had an older soul, though.
No, we've been through this. He's actually quite liberal. He was against buggery laws. I can't wait to make that Carl response tomorrow about Enoch Powell. I'm gonna wreck him.
Well, yeah, wasn't it? It was 6 Tory MPs who voted in favour of decriminalising homosexuality, and 2 of them were Margaret Thatcher and Enoch Powell, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, so woke.
1967.
Enoch Powell was woke is a hell of a take. That's all I can say. Oh goodness me! Right, we're on to Connor Tomlinson. An event in January.
Hold on. One thing on this thing about Starmer's recent thing. Richard Tice did say that he went too far. That Starmer went too far, and that we actually need loads of immigrant care workers, and that is bad.
Well,
shouldn't be saying that.
I'm not being funny. Well, no, Reform have made this very clear. They are going to be phasing that out, but it takes time to train your own countrymen to be.
It doesn't matter. You don't
let
Labour be to the right of you.
No.
No, it's classic triangulation.
Yes.
I was going to say, actually, to be fair, it actually does do there is an argument that it actually does us a favour if all of these policies are being, if they basically have to take the brunt, if Labour have to take the brunt of like the negative side effect of it, I would say that actually is a positive on our side. But from like a general perspective, they shouldn't be to the right of us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you don't say anything. Don't say Labour's too far.
Well, no, I'm on Tory Rebuttal's side here. It's triangulation. What I assume Tory Rebuttal's going to say is you've got more than one issue going on at once, and effectively keeping your grandmother alive is quite a big issue. What's the proof of that? COVID, if you remember. We did everything to keep Granny alive then. And so
that was a mistake.
I remember that.
Yeah, but we're talking political electoral reality here. And the fact of the matter is that if you do go kind of NPC on the whole immigration thing, and then you're asked specifically about healthcare and things like that, what you got to do about it. Reform already have the plan of, we'll have to do that in phases, over 7 years, however long it takes to train doctors. We'll sack off the medical union with their ridiculous limits on how many doctors we can train. We'll train up way more, and then eventually you can start phasing out these foreign doctors. That's a perfectly reasonable plan.
Reform should not be saying anything. Just don't say anything.
I don't particularly think it's a problem personally.
Don't say no. Actually, we want more immigration than Keir Starmer. Don't say that. Stupid thing to say. Don't say that.
That's not quite what they said. That's how the journalists
but you can see
it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't say anything. That's much safer.
I don't think it was a bad idea.
Just remember that remember that the we are not a secular society. We have a national religion, the NHS, and so then if you say anything, I'm only partially joking. Everything. That's why every argument. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, pretty much every major political argument has been through the lens of doctors and nurses.
Quite a lot of them.
So actually, I can imagine Reform are going to try and push the doctors and nurses. They're actually, in some ways, I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, but they seem to be trying to use the doctors and nurses narrative against Labour, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting switcheroo.
If that is what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's why they're. It's quite funny because they really don't want to talk about how they're going to reform the NHS because it is effectively going to be more European, but they don't want to get into it because all that happens is because it is technically an insurance system, but you just get told, they just want an American system and to sell it to Trump or whatever. So they do try and keep that off the table, but in reality, they are. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to make the NHS worse, but it is just going to be making it more in line with how loads of European countries work it. So there you go. Anyway, we're moving on to Connor Tomlinson, a man who should be blacklisted from absolutely every political party because he's that much of an idiot.
He's already left loads of years.
True. Yeah, to join Ian Hershey Ali.
Okay.
No, I think all his shows are done on either his own channel or Ian Hershey Ali's. I can't remember, but
he's also on the New Culture Forum sometimes.
Oh, yeah, he's on the program.
He's on.
Yeah.
God, that's another. You know, I've pretty much
take a while.
Well, no, I'm just going to say I've pretty much unsubscribed from an awful lot of alternative media, right-wing alternative media. I basically only watch The Spectator at this point.
I'm still subscribed to all of them, but I don't really watch them very often.
Yeah.
But
unironically, I get most of my news from Harry. Like, unironically.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I'm making daily videos at this point. Your patronage is more than appreciated, Sarah.
You are welcome. But no, unironically, because again, like, no, to be blunt, you cut through a lot of the slop, and you know, I'm only a half joking to Jeg when I say
that's actually
I'm so
an incredible compliment. Thank you very much. Go on.
The thing is, it's like I say to Jeg about one of the other guys on Worcester Club, if anyone doesn't know, but I literally, he'll sometimes send me stuff on Twitter, and I just say to him from time to time, like, I'm just so thankful because I am not trawling through that to find these gems. I am not trawling through Twitter to find these gems.
Yeah. Well,
and I think that I'm just so burnt out with a lot of this stuff, especially on the politics side, that I'm just, I find like a handful of people I trust. I'm like, that's it. You're going to have to do this for me.
Well, this whole Farage derangement syndrome that's been going on for a few months now, I said it at the time. You remember when Musk did that tweet, and I said on the Worcester Club, this might actually be 4D chess move to let Reform know who and who not to trust. That wasn't the intention, but that's pretty much exactly what's happened with me, because these people didn't really have introspection, and all they can really do is, whenever there's a success, like electorally with Farage, they'll be like, oh great, I'm Team Farage again, and then 2 seconds later they'll be like, oh, Farage should absolutely ruin his own reputation with my stupid suggestions. Kind of stuff like this. This was quite recent actually. So, oh no, this was March. I'm thinking, no, March was like 2 months ago. So Farage told the room that he thought net zero would be the next Brexit, and a friend turned to me and said, no, it's immigration. They're right, net zero will not be the deciding issue at the next election. I think they've completely misunderstood what Farage means by that. Because immigration is not the divisive issue that Brexit was. Everyone now pretty much agrees that immigration is completely out of control. How can you tell? Literally all 3 of the main parties are catching up with Reform on this. However, you still have Ed Davey as your energy secretary. As much as Kemi Badenoch counter-signals net zero, the actual policy is, we're going to review the target. Farage's whole point is you need to get rid of it. And that's what he means by the next Brexit. It's going to be this big conversation about, do we let the planet burn versus let's be sensible and actually be able to afford electricity.
I think in the public though, net zero is a lot more dead.
I think if you frame it as you are poor because of net zero, and especially because we even had 3 power cuts yesterday, something like that.
Yeah,
depends how you frame it.
Can we? Where's the bingo card? Can we put it on the bingo card yet?
Not yet. That's next week for the TOSH news. That's the TOSH news segment.
Because net zero nonsense gets wrapped up in like conservationalism. Like just you want to conserve the environment, which is normal. Like that's a very right-wing position.
Yeah, but
we don't want the countryside ruined.
Sure.
But sort of the net zeros try to. But yeah, the actual net zero crap is that's.
But this is why he's saying it's going to be the next Brexit, because Brexit was all mixed up with it's free trade. It's free trade. Don't you like free trade? And it turns out it's one of the most protectionist rackets known to man. Whereas net zero stuff, you cover the countryside in solar panels and wind farms, what have you. It's not necessarily as great.
And block out the sun.
And of course, block out the sun, which I'm not necessarily. I'm still on the side of
which
that.
You want.
I never said I wanted it. I said it'd be interesting to see what the results are and if it works or not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm for it unless I know it works.
You just want the lizard people.
Didn't that
to be
happen
happy.
once? And I was going to say, didn't the dinosaurs get wiped out by something blocking out the sun?
Yeah, that's what Harry wants. He wants to wipe us out.
Let me right. You have gone right into one of my expertise fields here, so I'll explain to you how mass extinction events happen. It is a multitude of different things all happening at the same time.
With Reddit.
Okay. I wish it started with Reddit. They need to go extinct. But typically, mass extinction events are correlated with things like massive fissures in the earth opening and massive amounts of lava coming out of the earth. That puts out a load of different chemicals that usually make a greenhouse effect, though sometimes if it's mostly ash, it dims it as well. That causes mass climate change that then makes more feedback loops. All this, it's not
Isn't that
like
basically the fear of a nuclear winter?
Yeah, kind of.
That's the same principle, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Sometimes it's a winter, sometimes it gets really hot. The problem is that the climate cultists are kind of right in that what causes mass extinctions in nature is massive changes in the climate, in geological terms overnight, over 100 years or so, probably longer. The thing is that that's not really going to happen now, even with human CO2. The problems it will cause is completely manageable, and that's what the argument needs to be. I'm kind of scared that Reform are going to go a bit Richard Tice on it and keep saying man-made climate change doesn't exist. Having said that, on Question Time, he was pretty good with the statistics, but he's got to stop saying that man-made climate change doesn't exist. We've known it exists since the 1800s. So
he needs to take the Cero position where I literally couldn't give less of a fuck of a damn.
The world also has natural feedback mechanisms that aren't accounted for by the climate cultists.
That is also true, yes. They will only talk about the negative ones, not the positive ones. So, there you go. But that's part of what doing the sun's supposed to be. It's supposed to be will kind of accelerate that feedback loop, which is why I'm not too bothered by it until we get results from it. But, yes, I understand my conspiracy brain. Oh, I'm Mr. Burns. Oh.
No, it's not even conspiracy. It's a cartoon villain. It's a cartoon villain. What are you doing? Block out the sun? Are you mad?
Yes, but it's not. It's dim.
This is literally like Dr. Evil with Mini-Me firing the laser on the moon. This is
also blocking out the sun in Britain, the last place on Earth that needs it.
I'm not being funny, Tharium, but we have definitely needed it this week. It was 30 degrees by me. Like, bring on the sun dimming. That's what I say. I've had enough of this.
True, you could tell me that way.
I mean, I do love winter as much as every other cave troll, but like, we can leave the sun alone for me. I can just get a bigger fan. You know what? Actually, here we go. How about we don't dim the sun, but we make electricity cheap enough that I can buy myself air conditioning?
Oh.
That was all of my intellect. I wrote. Now I've got to wait till next year to recharge.
All you need to do is hook a bike up to an air conditioning unit and then just pedal fast enough when you get cold.
Get like one of those like a massive hamster wheel and get one of my dogs on it.
Anyway, there's this. The point of this derangement syndrome here is that it's effectively a Reform need to be a single issue party, in that they need to go on about immigration, absolutely nothing else. And I mean, as Tory Boy put it before, you got to triangulate though. Why do we have loads of immigration? Because it's the way our.
That's not what triangulation is.
What's triangulation? I've misunderstood.
Triangulation is when you are on the right, and therefore you put out a left-wing, rhetoric or policy,
right,
because people aren't expecting you to do it.
Right.
And that by doing that, you can actually speak to a different part of the electorate that are not already voting for you, effectively, and make them less worried about the fact you might be winning the election.
Is it kind of like art of the deal kind of thing, where you essentially over or undersell your position to try and essentially find a middle ground where there wasn't one before, kind of thing?
No, that's the opposite.
Is that the opposite? Okay.
But that's
that would be going very right wing, because you're going to compromise at some point.
Yeah.
Which is essentially my argument for why I think that Homeland existing isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like just having like that right wing bellwether.
Oh, I kind of wish they didn't disintegrate this early, because they're really useful to point out and say we're not them.
Unironically, yeah.
Yeah.
This is actually what I think. This is what I think about a lot of you people, because I'm probably not as right wing as I'm probably not as right wing as the rest of the people on this panel, but I don't say the phrase "I don't punch right," but I try and avoid it, precisely because I understand that unless there are people saying things that are even more right wing than me, then not only does that make me look extreme, but it also means that you need people to be on the extremes to pull the center ground to where you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing my part.
Yeah, but I've also got to exist.
Yes, everyone plays
I
their own
also,
part.
yes, but I also need this record of me saying, "Look, I am definitely not extreme. I'm trying to kick the extremists into shape." But anyway, as I was saying with this, there seems to be a mindset that Farage needs to be both the anti-Islam and anti-immigration party and basically nothing else. It's not quite what Connor Tomlinson's saying here, but
immigration is the biggest thing, though. If that's what he's getting at.
It is now. It wasn't for the past few months, and I think the last time it actually topped the issues poll was around Brexit. So it's gone back to the top now, and as we said before, Farage has.
I mean, they
got a bit more hard.
They did sort of fool everyone with Brexit because they thought a lot of people thought Brexit, okay, immigration sorted now.
Oh yeah.
And so that it's all still catching up from people slowly realizing, hang on a second, why are they all still here?
Well, it's not even why they're still here. Why did we have 1 million come over last year? Or 2 years
Why are
ago
there
now?
more of them? What's this?
Yeah, Tory Rebuttal, what happened there? Why did the Tories let in 1 million people in 1 year?
Well, COVID
As I've explained, COVID happened. And because of that, there was zero immigration for 1 year. So the next 2 years, it was 30 to 40% higher.
Yes, quite.
I think it was still thousands net, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was still like 200,000 net or something.
Yeah, there was that whole period where like the only people who could fly into the country were people who had visas to move here, and you were like, why are there still airplanes landing?
Hundreds of thousands of people coming in. What's this?
Yeah. You can't go on holiday, but tens of thousands of people can move to the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds completely reasonable.
So another Connor Tomlinson long text. Have you heard the theory that Connor Tomlinson's paid to write? He doesn't do them anymore, but Rupert Lowe used to do these really long tweets, and there was a theory that Connor Tomlinson was paid to write them. I can believe it, but I have absolutely no evidence. But it would be very funny. So this about Rupert Lowe and the magic words. Nigel Farage thinks it's a very grave, dark, and dangerous use of language. We've gone through the debate on it. We don't need to go over it again, but this is what I mean. They need to be the most extreme on immigration, absolutely all the time. Which to be honest, they're still the most right wing of them, of the main parties, I should say. But this was just a big defense of Rupert Lowe, saying, "Oh, Rupert wasn't saying to do anything that doesn't comply with UK law." And as we've been through, like the mass deportation thing's the issue because the phrasing is too easy to manipulate by the media. That's all it comes down to.
They have taken Rupert's position now.
They always had Rupert's position. This is the point.
That's why he was complaining. That's what he's complaining about.
No, he's literally complaining that he can't use the magic words. It's completely different.
No, I mean Rupert. Like Rupert was like, we need to go hard on immigration. And now they have. So Rupert was right.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. The whole Rupert Lowe lost his mind was literally entirely down to semantics. And because of that, I think he's an incredibly stupid man. But anyway, that was just a quick one. Here's another absolutely massive one. It is our intention ultimately that if you come here illegally, you should not be able to stay. Farage announced a change in UK's policy on illegal immigration. Just this is what I mean by the... Do I have to get my meme? Where's my meme?
Yeah, who wrote that? I'm
going to get my meme words.
Rupert wrote that.
No, I've been through this. Rupert wrote fishing, farming, and economics. Those are the three things that Rupert wrote.
I also don't think Nigel really cared about this because Nigel has never brought up this contract.
Apart from around the election.
Yeah, and then after the election, like the usual thing. I mean, even if you win, right, your manifesto is sort of just, well,
Well, maybe if you're a Tory, but this is called a contract.
Well, Labour's been the same, haven't they? Even if you win, your manifesto sort of goes out the window. And when you lose, the general thing is, yeah. Well,
I don't know.
just free action.
Labour's stuck to their VAT on private schools.
Okay.
And their fiscal policy.
Destroying the economy. Like, what other promises have they had? Yeah.
They've been pretty much exactly as I expected.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, he uses the magic words as well. They're really trying to push this mass deportation thing, and it's just pathetic at this point, and needs to stop because it's cringe.
All of them except one person.
Who?
Steve Laws.
Deportation.
What do you mean?
Steve Laws doesn't use the magic word.
Does he not? He uses
remigration.
He uses remigration, whatever.
I remember one time he tweeted, "Mass deportations aren't enough. We need remigration." And I was sitting there thinking, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Actually, you know what? That's actually, I don't know if he did it on purpose. If he did it on purpose, that's actually genius. If he didn't do that on purpose, he's an absolute idiot. Because
well, it depends what you mean. I mean, he did it on purpose, but not for the reason you're thinking.
I'm saying, like, is he trying? Well, if it was genius, it would be because he's essentially trying to, how would you put it? Like, he's essentially doing the Mott and Bailey, but like in the opposite direction, where he's
that's what I mean.
That's
what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I mean by not in the way you're thinking. No, he didn't mean it that way. He meant it in the way that mass deportations means when we deport illegal immigrants for breaking laws, whereas remigration is when we create a situation where people from immigrant backgrounds deport themselves.
Right.
And effectively what he's meaning is that anyone who, hasn't lived here for more than 100 years needs to leave. which is why his version, his whole point is that mass deportation doesn't go far enough.
I've missed that tweet, but that is incredible. If Steve Laws had a bigger profile, mass deportation probably wouldn't be as naughty a word, but there we go. Matt Goodwin points out, this is what Farage has been saying all the time, basically, with Connor Tomlinson putting that stupid clip up again of Steve Edgington interviewing. It's a perfectly fine clip.
It's not.
You have been on streams where we have gone through what
I know,
was said
and I
there.
had my Rupert Lowe cope back then, which has been taken from me.
So you got a little bit of the derangement syndrome, but it's not as bad as other people, at least. But I'm not going.
But you can't say
that
when people. You can't call people liars when they say, "Well, Nigel said this."
I can.
Because he did.
I can, and I am, and I'm still going to.
He did say this.
As I will always say to these people, why do they always miss out? Why do they always not comment on the part where he says you've got to start somewhere? Start what? I can't be bothered with the argument again. This is a common one from Jonathan Wong. Labour taking Rupert Lowe's talking points and is more right wing on immigration than reform because you should speak English. Again, actually, was it in I think it was in one of the interviews. I think it was the Winston Marshall one. Farage actually brings up you've not integrated if you don't speak English. So he does actually bring that up as like a kind of integration test, and if you've not managed it, then you shouldn't be here. So again, total nonsense, but as we've been through, they don't really care about the truth. Right, we've gone on a bit longer than I wanted, so we're just going to speed run basically the well, that is not getting on screen properly. No, that's not what I wanted to move. Where's my Chrome? There we go. So we're mainly looking at the titles here. Obviously, a year ago, Farage is happening. I believe this was around the time of... it's gone. I think this was around the time of before the election where he said he was going to join. Oh, no, this was 20th of October 2023. That was way before the election, wasn't it?
Still got Callum.
You do still have Callum. Callum was one of the first who left who we thought wouldn't. And
no, after that laughing at The Guardian where you thoroughly demoralised him, that was inevitable.
I actually missed that one. I need to go back and watch it.
It was.
We were talking about how train conductors will make so much more money than Callum ever would at Lotus Eaters. And a week later, he quit.
Oh no. I mean, it's true, but that doesn't make it better.
Trying to find out what exactly the topic of this video was. I mean, the main point is very, very pro Farage. This was before the election, what have you. Then 10 months ago, 17th of June, Farage is leader of the right. We're on Team Farage. There's Stelios, good man. This was obviously probably before Bo got kicked. So, well on board. And then it's what's Farage's problem 2 months ago. What's that, 10th of March? This was around the time where they were getting a load of people on, like ex-Faragists, ex-UKippers, what have you, to basically have a whinge at Farage. This was around the arc that the Lotus Eaters were having then, and I think they're just going through some examples of this. And I said it all the time, and I don't actually know. I don't think I've ever asked you, Tory Rebuttal, your opinion on this, but it seems that everyone who has gone on, say, Lotus Eaters to whinge about Farage, Godfrey Bloom, Catherine, whatever she's called, the one who helped make the
Blakelock,
yeah, her, I guess Ben Habib as well. They all basically just seem to be useless.
They also know each other, right? They're all friends.
Oh, it's a clique, yeah. That's definitely true. So
also remember this. The date of this is the 10th of March because this was the run up to the local elections when all they wanted to do was go on about how Farage is useless.
Yeah, there was loads of counter signaling constantly that Farage isn't the right man. It basically trying to damage reform. But Lowe was definitely doing this. He might have more reason to. We'll have to wait and see.
One of the most egregious. That's one of the most egregious things out of all of this.
Yeah, they were
the fact that
openly trying to damage them constantly.
Do we not want to win? Do we not want to win?
No. Well, this is the problem. They don't. They can't accept that to win. I'm afraid that you do have to be thrown under the bus. That is just going to have to happen to some people. Douglas Carswell's actually one of the people that kind of got through under the bus, but just moved to America and almost accepted it. And he seems to be rather cordial.
I realise that one of the reasons I will never get into politics proper is because I would be too distasteful for the majority of any sort of, I guess, relatively, I don't know what you'd call sensible or whatever. I mean, consider I do a political compass test. I'm actually centre right, but
you mean the anime, right?
Well, exactly. But
you like fanboys as well.
I don't like them. I think I've spent too much time on the internet with a lot of anime. It's just pretty par for the course at this point. It's funny that people keep saying I sound like Sargon. No, I'm not as successful as Sargon, unfortunately.
I think.
But we would probably be both as. I think once, if anyone, for example, in the Tory, if anyone in the Tory party, actually had a long talk with me, I think that me and Sargon would probably be as welcome. Once I started having a conversation with them.
I think, and with the Bo thing, I think he could have salvaged that if he didn't just go, "F you all."
Double down, yeah.
The what thing?
You could have. The Bo's thing with the Scotlanders who occurred that flush. If he'd have just come across a bit more charismatic, he just came across as a bit more charismatic. So it's just banter in the fine tradition of all the great peoples of this island or something like that, rather than just going, "No, F you all."
I stand by everything I said. I stand by every word I think was his initial response on Twitter.
Yeah. Just come across a bit more likable. I mean, he could have sold that fine.
I mean, I had the argument with him on Twitter where I'm like, you keep saying that it was just a joke. I actually went to the original stream, and I get you were being hyperbolic, but you did mean that Scotland are basically full of useless people, didn't he? And he's like, I meant it in terms of Edward the First. I'm like, no, you didn't. I just listened to the conversation you were talking about today. He kept pivoting to these different things, and in the end, he basically said, reform's vetting should have been better then. And I said, yeah, I agree. That's why they kicked you out. Thanks for agreeing with me.
The thing is, so Edward the First did say it, and then Bo was also saying it as a joke. But yeah, again, you should have just, he could have played it a lot better when they came for him.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, as we say, this was around the time. It's just let's cover all the bad press about him. Let's not have any particular nuance. To be fair, Stelios probably did. Stelios, I chat to Stelios, so he's. I don't watch these clips necessarily, but
Stelios is the Lotus Eater's strongest warrior.
He is. He's definitely the most sensible one there, I'd say. This one, Nigel let himself down. What's this about? Oh, this is the. Again, it's not coordinated. It's a loose network, but these things become memes very quickly. These clips of Farage saying, Islam and mass deportations and what have you, and it becomes a meme overnight, and it gets so tedious.
Yeah, but he did say these things. Like you call people liars, but he does say these things, and you can it's not. I don't think it's on everyone's. It's everyone's responsibility to hear every dog whistle. I think
it is. I think it is definitely their responsibility to not lie about what he said and meant when he said these things.
You say he said these things.
That's so specifically on mass deportations, let's. It depends what they say in the clip, I suppose. There we go.
Right, that's just where we are.
Mm-hmm. I'll stop that.
If we politically alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. We'll lose.
So how does one include
We
them?
will lose.
Are they commentating? Are they commentating at any point?
Kind of a terrible state we're going to be in.
So what's happening with that audio balancing? Is that on the original? Sorry, don't worry.
Yeah, this is the original.
I'm just getting autistic at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they're not I'm kind of surprised they're not pausing it more, but okay.
Chair react is the meta. Okay. You should know this by now.
He's not prepared to do a damn thing about it.
I mean, saying he's not going to do a damn thing about radical Islam.
Probably true.
That's just
about Islam? About Islam, probably true.
What does he need to do about Islam, Tharium?
Make it an uncomfortable environment for them.
Right, what exactly?
They're 6% of the population. We don't need them.
What did you say, Tory?
Theresa May did that.
That is true. Wow. She did it. She did make a hostile environment.
If only, right? I mean, they're 6.5% of the population. They're not voting for reform. Don't pander to these people. You're not going to win anything from that. You're just making.
I have it on good authority that certain Bangladeshi nationalists are voting reform.
I've heard that too. It's my problem is that there's no kind of deep understanding of what's going on. This is what I want to say. There's factions on the right that are very much just that they're maybe not their one and only, but one of their main aims is just to bash Islam non-stop, and that's kind of it. And I think that's basically a very low IQ grug way of doing things. The Islam questions.
Had Crusader ancestors. I can't help it.
Yeah, and they respected Saladin.
Well, you're French.
But
no, they were with Richard Lionheart.
But the whole Islam in the UK thing is way more complex than just they all need to go.
Not really.
Well, I mean, you're just a lolcow if you think that, frankly. And
they're not voting. They're not voting for reform.
There will have been Muslims who voted for reform.
How many?
Well, at least
what
one.
Percentage of the already? What
percentage? I know at least one did.
What percentage of the already tiny percentage? We don't need them. They're just a plague upon us.
You don't need them. They're a plague, but it's all rhetoric that's got to get you nowhere. It's pointless trying to even get remotely close to the mainstream realm and say stuff like this. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to ruin you. Why fix what ain't broken? Frankly, it's ridiculous to keep going on about it. People don't want Islamification of Britain. Fine, that doesn't mean you need to alienate them. It's not an either.
Well, it kind of does. You can't have both. It is. You can't have Britain and Islam.
Yes, you can.
They don't work together. No, they don't work together.
To say otherwise, you can't have radical Islam. That's fine, but we had Islam here for 100 years now and became a problem recently. Why would that be? Because
there's more of them.
Nope. It's
way more of them.
Way more complex than that, I'm afraid to say.
No.
A lot of the online right just want to commit evil or be allowed to shout racial slurs in the street. That is basically how I feel about quite a few people. So, anyway, so yeah, I've been through that. Why is Farage scared of Rupert Lowe? That was a bit of a mad one. I'm not convinced he was scared at all. Tory boy, do you think Farage is scared of Rupert Lowe?
Yes.
I don't think he thinks about him at all.
I'm very much on that side. I think he gets really fed up whenever he's asked. It mainly seems to be because I just don't care about any of this. But obviously the Rupert Lowe thing it's deranged to think he thinks about him, as you say. It's deranged to think he's scared of him. I'm not being funny, but I've had one of the biggest deranged ones actually was when Rupert Lowe started up that fund for the inquiry, and absolutely everyone went nuts and said, "Oh, Reform have gone back on it," and then like a day later, Reform's like, "We've got KCs working on a case to bring a judicial review in," which is exactly what Maggie Oliver's doing, who seems to be the number one person for kind of being an outsider attacking the political establishment on this, let's say. Inquiries, especially private ones where you don't have any power to compel witnesses, say, basically pointless. And obviously Connor Tomlinson's whole thing, his point was, this will keep it in the news. Literally not seen it in the news. Never seen him go on... I've never even seen him go on GB News to talk about it, which I think the main thing back at that is, Nigel Farage wouldn't let him on. Nigel Farage, they were constantly going on about the Rupert Lowe drama for about 2 weeks after it happened. He will have been invited on. Rupert Lowe just will have refused to go on, and I think it's because the questions he has to answer from them will be too difficult. Why did he go on Dan Wootton? Because Dan Wootton didn't push back. It's exclusive. It's exclusive. Dan Wootton didn't ask him any hard-hitting questions. He's just like, I see what you mean. Right, carry on. Which is which nobody brings up, by the way. You'll never see that from these Farage derangement syndrome sufferers. Like, there's never any hard-hitting questions to Rupert Lowe. It's just, I want to support him. Almost uncritically.
I feel like there's almost I think I mentioned this on another stream, but there's also there's a third option which sort of worries me, which is that Farage fully commits, but somehow doesn't manage to actually fulfill the mandate that we want. And somehow everybody's miserable.
That will be.
Do you know what I mean?
That will be infinitely better than Tories or Labour winning again. Mind.
It is true, but
I'll take it. As I always say, go on.
But I was going to say that the problem is it's the point that we keep coming back to. We actually do want to win. We kind of want to win this, so it's any sort of chink in the armor, so to speak, is I think is a point, potential point for concern.
I'm being accused that I'm deluded and blinking about Islam because I don't want to lose my job. I don't no one knows where I work. Two, no, it's because I have Muslim friends, and I have friends who've married Muslims. Yeah, I've got Muslim friends. I've got friends who married Muslims. It's obviously way more complicated than just they all need to go. It's obviously more complicated than that. But
I've realised you're being Reform Rubber again, because this was what Rubber thought. He thought, we could get all the Muslims to vote for the Tories if only we had the.
I'm under no illusion.
Had the right outreach.
I am under no illusion.
I think you'll find that a much higher percentage of Muslims vote Conservative than you would imagine.
Well, it was 10% in the in one of those elections. No. It was clear. It was, but they all went Labour and all the Hindus went Tory.
It was only 65-70% Labour.
Yeah, well, the Greens as well, because the Greens want to be an Islamic party. But it was tiny.
The Greens are funny on that, but
I think I'm thinking of 2019, not 2024.
Well, either way. Well, either way, Muslims are certainly the most one-sided religious demographic, and it does lean to Labour, but it leans to Labour, as Tory Boy says, by what was that? How much was the percentage? 50-60%, something like that.
Because they're now going to their own independent stuff.
Well, no, that was 2019 before the independent stuff. They moved to the independent stuff because Labour wasn't a hard line on Gaza. which is a problem. Which reform talk about, and that is not the vote they are expecting. They are expecting the ones that, you know. It's like even in the statistics Connor Tomlinson always brings up. You know, it's like half of them are a problem. Okay, that means the other half aren't. You know, necessarily.
No. I always think, you know, these polls, like, do you believe in mass slaughter? And some of them are smart enough to say no. You know, that's how I view that. But you still have half of them going, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and that half is a problem, as reforms say. Like they're an explicit problem. Yes.
I mean, you ask the actual Islamic countries, they all say that our Muslims are absolutely insane. So I think we should get rid of them.
Oh wow, do they? That's incredible. Do we get immigration from those countries where they say those types of Muslims are mental?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Wow, so Islam's a bit more complicated then. They're all a monolith that all need to go. Crazy. Thanks for that.
Well, the ones in our country, they need to go.
Just not though, are they? So we're now on to kind of the meat and potatoes of the show. You know, Carl Benjamin. I didn't think we'd go on for 2.5 hours, but here we are. So
that's a good conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
like, comment, subscribe.
I'm actually in the comments here. Actually, I need to move the thing back. There we go. So Carl said on the night of the election win, good for Farage. I have disagreements and reservations with him, but slaughtering Labour and Tories is good. To which I obviously point out, yeah, but this was you a couple of months ago saying Farage is a disaster for reform. Like, what do you mean you have reservations? This is going beyond it. Which I
think there he was probably also just, because you got Ben Habib there, he's probably just, it's easier to go along with people.
He's supposed to be interviewing him. Like, you expect some sort of devil's advocate. If you're just going to be there as kind of a megahorn to Farage... the thing is, you can't just say that, actually, because he ended up for the next couple of months having people like, I don't think Jared Barton went on, actually, but Godfrey Bloom, Catherine Blakely, whatever she's called, she, by the way, English Democrats, she was very much the explicitly anti-Islam party. She ended up getting like 90 votes in Runcorn compared to Reform's tens of thousands.
Who knows? Nobody knows about that.
No one's interested in it. That's my point.
People think Reform is basically Homeland. Lots of people do.
You can't have this both ways, man. We can't have it of Farage keeps saying all this cuck stuff. Oh, but they're actually thought of as
because people don't see that though.
Well,
no,
normally
people don't watch this stuff. Nobody watches that stuff. It's just vibes.
I was going to say, Guardian readers do genuinely consider... Well, I mean, to be fair, they think that...
people who aren't voting for them, yes. People who aren't voting... The only people who think that Reform are basically Homeland are people that aren't voting for them anyway. It's just... It's a nuts statement.
I think a lot of people are voting for them because they think that.
It's a nuts statement. Totally nuts.
Nah.
But
you don't think people think Reform is more far right than they actually are in the general public?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, no. Especially after Brexit. No, genuinely. Listen, I've been out leafleting and all that, and the only kind of time that is ever thought of as a far-right party is when people are against it. Most people are like, yeah, I voted Labour all my life, I've been on the left, and Reform basically seems to be where my opinions have been. And, I think I've said the story of the guy who went on about the Quran for 5 minutes, and I said, yeah, it's not all Muslims though, is it? Things are Yusuf, and he's like, yeah, he's ace, isn't he? Like, it's not... It's crazy to me to think, because I've been out there, I've met these people. I'm sure it's anecdotal, but with other people I've talked to as well, no one is under the impression that Reform are going to be deporting all the non-whites like Homeland want to an extent.
No, I mean in the sense that people think Reform are more far right than they actually are.
I don't think they're under that impression. I really, if they are, it's not to any ridiculous degree. Maybe it's to, I thought, when they get in power, I thought they'd deport 10 more people than they did.
Look, look, we've got Chris Fisher here going, Reform is Nazi, Reform is extreme far right.
Yeah, he's not voting for them, is he? I don't care about these mental people on the left. I only care about, Reform voters. I care what or potential Reform voters. I only care what they think. And I'm barely seeing anyone say they're too far right. That's like on the fence, I mean. People on the fence are more.
I think that if you look at mainstream consensus, though, I don't know what it's like recently, but like for example, unfortunately, because of a lot of stuff like the Question Time, or you have a lot of left leaning. I mean, even BBC, as far as I'm concerned, is very left leaning. In these places, which are unfortunately nexuses, these are many nexus. Well, I don't know what the plural for nexus is.
Nexi.
For nexi, possibly. It's Greek actually, so I think nexus. Anyway, but long story short, it's what these places, it will come across as, they will be painted not so much recently. Recently, it has been changing, but they are still considered generally as the out there party.
Yeah,
and that is the
this is what the norm is.
Yeah, there's a difference between being Homeland and a resurgent party, though, isn't there?
But people, but that makes sense to us, but it doesn't make sense to someone watching the BBC. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
so I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that there is there is a bit of a ways to go before it becomes normalized.
There's an idea there to the right of the Tory party, yeah. I know that, but you know, when we're bringing Homeland into it, it's like, no, people don't think they're Homeland, or the policies are like Homeland. But anyway, on to Carl. So Lois Perry, quite clear who Rupert Lowe really works for. This is because he was signalling Tories, basically. They really think we're stupid, don't we? And then Carl's like, "Oh, do you not think people are entitled to think that Farage ought to have a plan?" Which really rubs me up the wrong way, because again, it's been months of just pure counter-signaling, and it's rarely been about his plan or details of it. It's been more, he's an untrustworthy bell.
He probably have much of a plan, but that doesn't matter. People don't care.
One that too. I don't think he'd be talking to Dominic Cummings if he didn't at least have some semblance of a plan he was putting together. That's I suppose the way I'd put it. And it's not just Dominic Cummings; it's other people as well. And plus, you have to have a plan to have the most candidates selected for the local elections. Like that doesn't happen by accident. That happens with a plan and executing it. And if they can do that quickly, they can probably do it within government as well, especially if they're talking to people who've already been in there. So there you go. But then Carl's obviously moved over to mainly doing stuff on his channel as well. Which some people have speculated that that's because Lotus Eaters might be winding down. I don't necessarily think so. I think it's actually more Carl just wants more money, which is fair enough. I've got nothing against that. But I do have an issue when he's doing it via basically, being deranged about Farage. Obviously this one, Farage is a right-winger again. Did a whole video on this announcement and the speech, and it's not contradictory of anything in the contract or anything he's really said since. It's as Matt Goodwin said before, people misread the room and I guess just didn't really listen to him and came up with their own idea of what Farage was about in his head. No, we've been through it, Tharium. We did it an hour ago.
You're going for secret words, whereas here he's actually saying...
Where does he say mass deportation? Where does he say the phrase? It's nowhere in it. Stop it.
I've been over it.
Stop
Nobody
it.
cares.
Yes, they do. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing this again. I'm done. I'm done. Conversation over.
Is there anyone who cares? Is there anyone who cares?
Yes, we've been through it.
Nobody says nobody says, "Oh, get rid of all illegal immigrants." And but he's saying,
well, that's exactly what Farage said actually. So you say no one did it. Farage did that and then won an election. So what are you talking about?
No one's complaining. No one's complaining about the
people in Homeland are complaining.
I'll get rid of
people in Homeland are complaining. I take it the answer is who cares. No, I'm not going through this again. Oh my god, who cares about it? Farage and Reform do, because they can't be bothered having every interview and headline be mass deportation. They're going to get rid of David Lammy. They can't be bothered with it. Fine. But yeah,
speaking of Matt Goodwin, I've not heard much from him recently.
He streams every Friday. He's got a show on GB News, and he was canvassing with Reform in.
I don't really watch TV.
Runcorn. Well, they stream GB News on YouTube. That's how I can watch it without a license.
Yeah, that's how I watch it.
Yeah. Obviously, then we kind of went through it before, but Carl, it's an absolute bloodbath. Thank God for Farage, etc., etc. This is why Farage shouldn't listen to you, Carl, because your suggestions probably would have killed all this. And then, even more, obviously, with this week, with the rhetoric pivoting right, and echoes of Enoch Powell being made, as they say. They don't know what to do about Farage. Yep, true. Farage is the only game in town. You're absolutely right, Carl. Oh, Farage attacks the right again. Oh, God, who did he attack? Oh, he attacked Rupert Lowe, someone who's been kicked out of the party anyway and has made a fool of himself post then. And Tommy Robinson, who is in jail and absolutely deserves it. But yeah.
Didn't he plead guilty?
He pled guilty after trying to defend himself for like 2 weeks or something. He tried to mount a defence, none of it was working, so he just changed his plea. Which...
the smartest thing he's ever done.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, why is he in solitary confinement? It's because his barrister asked for it. Because, obviously for his own safety, but this whole thing of, it's because the state are trying to kill him. It's like, no, it was requested by Tommy Robinson's team, so don't give me that. But yeah, there's a bit of derangement about Tommy Robinson, but that's a completely different story that I don't want to get into because it's late. But yeah, a lot of this derangement, as we've kind of gone through, is...
What we haven't discussed is how there's two types of Farage or anyone derangement syndrome. There's pro and anti.
What are you saying here, Tory Rebuttal?
I'm saying you're pro Farage derangement syndrome.
Nah,
the rest of us are anti-Farage derangement syndrome.
I am perfectly reasonable. I am nuanced about the whole thing. I make my criticisms of Farage. Have I watched Tommy's video? Yes, I watched Tommy's video. And
what are your criticisms of Nigel?
He's too Americanized because he wants reform of the House of Lords, which is going to turn it into a second chamber, second elected chamber. Sorry. He. God,
there we go. Yeah, that's it.
That's the most concise one I can pull out of my head at the moment. A lot of the other ones are just things I don't care about. Like I think Reform's communication is pretty bad, usually. I say that one quite a lot. Their energy policies are pretty dire as well, though that is better than I initially thought, but it's still not like... I don't ban battery systems, for God's sake.
Actually, there's a very easy one. I just thought of it off the top of my head. They have too much boomer framing. And I realised that that's because a large amount of like...
I was going to say, my defence of that is the boomers are the main voting core.
Well, they are, but I don't... But then you can make the same argument, I guess, that Tharium's making about whether you're going to pander to a certain part of the voter base, essentially just because you have no other choice or whatever, rather than trying to sort of shift things away.
Catering to boomers makes a lot more sense than catering to Muslims.
Well,
he's not catering to Muslims. He's just not alienating them. He's catering to boomers.
And I think that my thing with the boomers is it's more just... It's not even necessarily just catering to it, but it's more the framing. Like everything... the one thing I don't want them to do is slide into the look how not racist we are. Like the second that they start doing that, I'm going to lose my shit. My marbles.
He has done that a bit.
What do you mean? Not look how not racist we are.
I don't know how to describe
it. I'm not being funny, Sarah. Would you not want to be on the side of people who aren't racist?
Yes, but I've also...
You want him to step over that whole sort of mindset.
Yeah.
I think you're saying.
We need to stop measuring ourselves by basically our enemies measuring... sorry, my brain is shutting down. My medication is fully worn off at this point. I don't want to... I think Vicar actually is actually the translator for me at the moment. He's actually doing it better than I am. He's actually got it about right. But basically, don't use the same measurements that you're... It's like referring to ourselves as capitalist. It's like even referring to ourselves as right wing. These are all left wing frameworks, and eventually we need to try and distance ourselves from a lot of these measurements because they are...
That's something I'm worried. Like years down the line with. We're still in Boomerverse, I'm afraid. So you are going to have to cater to that frame.
Yeah, but with Nigel, you have someone who can actually push these sort of things, because these sort of things need someone, an individual.
Well, how about it does? How about it does that after the vote's hardened more than it has?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for it, just as long as they doesn't start backsliding now. Then, as far as I don't mind.
It's another thing I have with the whole complaints. It's like with the flag thing the other day. Like, they didn't list out every flag you'll be able to fly. As
Yeah, that was stupid.
That was deranged. Yeah. Stuff like this seems to happen. Maybe not every week, but every month. But I will push back on. You meet a Farage fanboy. I look really nuanced, to be honest with you. And a big reason that I'm very open in my videos that I'm very much on Reform's side, and I do try and take that into account. But the reason for it is, like, what is your alternative? What do you want, Carl? Is your alternative Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe's party?
He admits that Reform is probably going to win. He just and he, like you said, he likes what their recent policy stuff last week. He just sort of hopes they keep it up.
So why was he counter signaling them for 2 months?
He was, like, part of it is that he was let down by them. His friends were as well.
It's two things. One, it's the bitterness, like, whatever. I can understand that, but the other part, frankly, I think that there's a whole grifting element to it. Like, there's a grifting element to being anti-Farage. The mainstream media has basically run off it for decades. They're still trying to do it, but when we've seen it a few times, really, where the online right and mainstream, the Tories especially, will just be parallel. Supporting Rupert Lowe. That was the main big one. Saying that it's like, you remember the other day as well when you had the Tories saying deport all foreign criminals, and I saw people say, "Oh, that's outflanking Reform." Come on.
Yeah, good to remember, like, people don't read every they don't see everything, right?
I'm not being funny, Tharium, but this is from people whose literal job is to keep an eye on these things. Come on.
I know, but you know what I'm saying.
If it was someone like, I don't know who I'd describe as in the online world. Like, I don't think anyone's got an excuse to miss this sort of thing. They didn't read the contract. That much was obvious. They base it off out of context clips. I think this is why, as Tory Rebuttal says, and I'm going to remind you that you made this compliment to me. It's why he likes my channel, because I go to first-hand sources, and these people are paid. Effectively, in theory, they're paid to do that, and they never do. It's crazy. So they have a completely warped view on these situations, and as I said the other day, to some extent, I think they're doing it on purpose. And I think part of that is down to the grift, and it's, as I say, this all comes down to the Farage derangement syndrome that needs to change. This isn't good. This isn't going to help the right. If you want to change things for better on the right, you have to actually get your perception as closer to reality as you can. And I think one thing we can all go on.
Sorry, there was a whole, wasn't there a whole narrative where, this is probably us that said it, which was that the problem with Lotus Eaters is that a lot of their audience is American.
Yeah.
And that when we talk about them being grifters, we're saying that they're appealing too much to people who are involved in MAGA who don't actually know anything about British politics.
Well, it's...
And I think there was a whole section of that audience who, when Elon Musk did this whole thing about Nigel Farage, that just turned their entire opinion on Nigel Farage for no reason other than Elon Musk said it, therefore we have to just do whatever he says.
And I think honestly, part of the reason you've started to see a bit of schizophrenia with, Farage has just won, that's great, he's destroying them. I think part of the reason for that is Americans really love winners. And Farage is showing himself to be quite a big runner. I get these comments back a lot. Lotus Eaters aren't grifters. I mean, let's be specific in the language then. You define a grifter as someone who is saying something they don't particularly believe because they think it will, gain them followers, gain them super chats, whatever. I think to a degree Lotus Eaters are doing that.
No.
I genuinely think they are.
If you prefer a different term, we'll just call them slop merchants.
To be fair, you also
I think that's too nice.
The thing is, you also can also not necessarily be conscious that your audience captured. It can actually happen. It's one of the dangers of echo chambers.
I'd call
and one of the reasons.
I'd call that a form of grifting, though. If you get captured by your audience, you're just selling them what they want to hear.
Grifting means you're lying.
Grifting. So this is where the difference I think is that grifting is usually where you're conscious of it, whereas audience capture, you aren't necessarily. But because you created an echo chamber, partly why I mentioned earlier why I quite like this community. We are not an echo chamber. We all disagree. On something. And if not, I'll just fight you for no reason. But the fact is, I think that, in my opinion, and this is, and I will own this. This is because I have a positive, sentimentality towards Lotus Eaters and specifically Carl. I will assume that it's probably more audience capture than grifting, at least from Carl's perspective. But however, is there a certain amount of pandering that happens, especially in Twitter, especially when the Twitter blood sports get engaged? Absolutely, there is definitely some pandering there. So where the lines blur, I don't know, but my gut says audience capture more than grifting. But that's just me.
They're not liars. I really don't get that from them.
If they're not doing this on purpose, they are monumentally stupid, I guess.
Well, isn't that your opinion of Dan? You think Dan's lying, or he's really stupid?
There's a reason I focus on Carl, and that's because I followed him more than the other. I really don't know much about Dan. I just know he doesn't think the moon landings are real, and that made me not want to listen to him ever again. Yeah, but Carl's not that bad.
Fair point.
No, but we've
Dan
seen.
is quite good on economics.
Dan probably is very good on economics, but there's no way I'm listening to a man who doesn't believe the moon landings happened. It's just not happening. And Bo's just unpleasant, to be honest. But no, with Carl,
Bo's history content is really good. I will say that.
Fascism isn't totalitarianism. What the?
What?
It's someone in the chat. But the reason I focus so much on Carl, and I say he does it, is because he's been doing this for over 10 years, and he was very good at getting his sources together, reading through things, and making sure what he was saying was was true. And if he's not doing that anymore, he's either got monumentally lazy, monumentally stupid, or he is being a lying grifter. And I can't. We've been through me being blocked and what have you, but it really that's the thing that really changed my mind on the whole thing. Because I used to think I was just stupid, but no, I'm sending him evidence that goes against the whole narrative he's created about Rupert Lowe's character study that he did, where it's talk about deranged. I can at least say, Nigel Farage definitely burns people. Like even in this clip, he's being asked about Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe and what have you. I don't think he needs to be as dismissive as calling them very small, insignificant people. But Carl's videos on Rupert Lowe were like, I've never seen brown nosing like it. Look at all these people who work for him. They're giving nothing but great things about him. Look at all these people who work for it. Look at Ben Habib, his friend. He loves him. Never talked about his time at Southampton, where people hated him. Never talked about the KC, who pointed out he lied. Like, he was...
Yeah, but how is this... But this is like... I mean, you see, like you're saying, Southampton.
Because
at one point you've got like...
Hang on. I sent him this stuff... And he didn't argue in good faith on it. He didn't take a look at it. He either ignored it, and then he blocked me because I kept trying to bring him back around to it. Like, address this, please. It's going completely against what you're saying about him. What am I supposed to take from that?
When we've got like some people say this, some people say opposite. Yeah.
But he didn't say that. He didn't say that in his video.
At the end of the day, it's just your vibes and like which group you sort of go with.
I will say, as effectively a Saga Knight, it was bad form. and it's not what I would expect from him. That was actually.
I've been noticing it more and more as well. Is what I'd say. It's happening a bit with James Lindsay.
Degree.
I mean, stupidity only covers some of what he's doing. I'm afraid to say, that's my take on the whole thing. But in terms of Farage derangement syndrome, I mean, there is no doubt. I don't think I can name anyone off the top of my head necessarily, but there are definitely people who were like Farage simps to a point. Even I think it's cringe. I obviously don't think that because I'm based.
Like Richard Brexit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Richard Tice, even better.
If you think Carl is like the ultimate Farage derangement syndrome, he's really not.
No, I don't think he is, but I think he's. No, Ben Habib fits that camp really well.
Yeah. Ben Habib's been a bit of a crybaby.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
it's not
like I said, I can
of a grown ass man.
I can sympathise with what happened with Ben Habib, but nobody cares. Move on, man.
Yeah. I'm being asked, did Sargon know I was DMing you? I didn't DM him. This was on public Twitter. I tweeted him these things, which I think makes it worse, to be honest.
and just a bit of context for anyone who doesn't know, Harry and Sargon aren't just Twitter mutuals.
We weren't even mutuals. He never followed me.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that you knew each other even outside of Twitter for at least briefly.
I want to say no. I've met him like 3 times. No. He does.
That's more than most people.
That is true. He knows me by name. In terms of not my real name, is in my channel. So I super chatted them a couple of times early on the Lotus Eaters days, and obviously some of them have come on my channel. So I know I get mentioned at the office. But I mean, the only Lotus Eater I'd have on at this point is Stelios, to be honest. I'm not really bothered about the others. I might have Josh back on, actually. Josh was good fun. Josh is good faith, I found.
Josh hates Nigel more than Carl does.
Yeah, but I imagine the conversation would. I imagine if I showed the evidence that I showed Carl, Josh would be not as.
I mean, like you say, you like the Rupert stuff was, but like the Rupert stuff was all a very emotional period for everyone. It was all just
man up, jeez.
How we got.
I'm not having that.
You know what I'm saying. It was all based on like how people felt about it.
It's what I said in the Discord. This whole thing is a load of people being emotionally driven morons. It's not an excuse.
On both sides.
I'm not having it on both sides. I don't believe it was both sides. I don't believe it was both sides. So, So
do we think that Rupert Lowe's never going to get the whip back then?
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. I think actually in this clip, Farage even says it's not happening. So,
surely, if the police investigate and find there's nothing that's happened,
they still
that all gets swept under the carpet. They do whatever. Never. Okay.
Zaya's not with Zaya in control. Like I said, I mean, Dream is like Rupert returns, kicking out Zaya.
Yeah, I don't think I'd let a man who threatened me back into the party either, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't think he did.
I think we need to wait and see what. Well, if it does go to court in the first place.
What does the Crown Prosecution Service say about this?
Well, Nigel said he wouldn't have done it, so.
No, he didn't. We've been through that.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did.
He said after a bit of waffle, he goes, you do like 100 things. Sometimes you make a mistake.
Let's be very clear. He was talking about councillors. Then one of the other hosts kept bringing up Rupert Lowe, and he did what he always does, which was deflect and bring it back to the councillor conversation and ignore that question.
He wasn't talking. He was talking about the arrest. Zaya trying to get him arrested. That's what it was. That's what the question was.
How can you defend Zaya calling the cops on Lowe? I think I'd call the cops on someone who threatened me multiple times. Like, what are you talking about? I'm so fed up of this. Yes, I would. Why wouldn't I? I don't want to be threatened at work.
If you work together, it's different, right?
Yeah, but you just fire him if that was the case.
Do I
fire an MP?
Well, you can drop him from the party.
They did.
Yeah, but you don't need to also try and get him arrested.
Which is what makes me think there's something serious.
Based on a very you don't wait 3 months for an actual death threat. You think it's serious.
People threaten me on X every day. Yeah, that's not
exactly. You don't go to the police.
Can you stop pretending that is the same thing as one of your work colleagues threatening you? It's not the same thing by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, someone threatening you is kind of not so bad. Because Rupert isn't actually going to murder you.
Why are you acting like that? I hate this argument as well. Why is it all of a sudden a thing that 67-year-olds are capable of murder or assault?
Well, look at him. He's a 67-year-old businessman with 0 criminal history. It's like I said, him saying he's going to murder me is about as serious as you saying you're going to murder me.
He does have a history of anger management
I know
issues.
It's not happened. How many people has he murdered?
How many people did Harold Shipman murder before he murdered his first? It's not exactly an argument. I defend, especially with it going to the CPS. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of over at that point. Zaya's not made it up, which is all the argument was about. It's over. It's done.
Not at all. Not even slightly. We're not pretending that our police forces cares about truth, honesty, and nobility, are we?
Well, besides the point, I just don't get why if Rupert has done some, what's got to happen here for you to believe that Rupert Lowe actually did threaten him? Like, not that we're at the point where I can actually say that. Right, you need a recording of it, right? Okay.
And even then,
there
was no point. It wasn't even then. Even then, it wasn't a serious threat.
Incredible.
You don't need to arrest him for
Incredible. That. You are saying this as if you've heard a recording that we don't even know exists. It's just not. You have Zaya derangement syndrome, so we already knew that though. Anyway, I suppose.
I think the part of I think I mentioned this last time, but I think the part of the huge issue with all of this is that all of this, we are all a little bit deranged when it comes to mainstream news sources, and I know because you've done stuff around what the Casey said and stuff, and there is a fair point that she isn't likely to want to lie about it. But the problem is, we essentially have had at least a decade of almost expecting mainstream, to some extent, to be dishonest. And so the problem is that, and maybe this is a problem with us, I don't know, us as in the online right or just the online sphere generally, there's a little bit of a boy that cried wolf here, and I'm not sure which is which. Because for example, when reforms start doing well, and then suddenly there's a scandal, I'm kind of in my mind, I'm like, oh, of course there's a scandal. Of course there's a scandal. It does seem strange that it has to be now while we're surging, but then at the same time, it could be, oh wait, maybe because something actually did happen. Maybe this is my own derangement syndrome, not I don't know where this is meant to be, which is more accurate. But I think that maybe it's just the fact that I don't actually know if I'm actually able to make an actually informed decision about this, because I know that in my mind I'm a bit too captured about it, or a bit too married to a specific point. I don't know.
There's definitely an issue with the reverse NPC where it's anything that the media says, you just automatically believe the opposite or something like that. Which is why I make sure, I pretty much exclusively use mainstream sources for all my videos, but I'll read out headlines usually if they're funny, but I'm usually just straight into the article. Here's what they say. Here's the important bits. And I'm kind of fed up with the anti-NPC thing as well, but that's a completely different topic. But I think we can largely sum up now. So I think I've made my point. The panel's we've definitely agreed that there are some things that there's no way you can call it anything other than deranged. Obviously, the big one being this Ben Habib shtick.
Yeah, but he's probably the worst.
Oh, he's definitely the worst. Well, that's why I used him at the start, to say, I don't think you can deny this exists. Obviously, it's on a spectrum like everything is, but there's all... Quite. But
I speak for myself. I'm sorry, chat. And I'm sorry, panel.
But I'm definitely on the side of this has to stop, and we need to not necessarily stop platforming them, but we have to certainly, people like Dan Wootton aren't doing this. The Lotus Seeds don't seem to be doing this very much, but we have to start parsing information properly. We're not doing a very good job of it at the moment. Obviously, this would happen as we start winning because everyone gets dead excited and then says, "Oh, I'd do it this way, that way, and the other way." And if people in power actually start disagreeing with you, you start going a bit mad. And I'm just at a point of, just trust the plan. You can call that deranged, but there's a difference between being deranged and being tribalistic. Being tribalistic on roids makes you deranged, and these people are being tribalistic on roids. So,
yeah, but you like, I do think you go too far with the just a lot of people. It's completely fair for people to have doubts about Nigel.
I don't have an issue with people having doubts. I completely understand why you'd have doubts.
Well,
My problem comes in when you.
Places.
This isn't Sargon's place. Sargon's place is counter-signaling the party every day. That's different to having doubts. He platforms these liars. Not that I'm calling him a liar necessarily at this point, and then doesn't offer any counter argument to it. He just kind of agrees with it.
Like, it's not like Ben Habib's on there. Once. It's not like Ben Habib's on every week.
No, it's just I know who has been. Stephen Wolf. He's been on constantly, pretty much. They had Godfrey Bloom on. They had Catherine, whatever she's called. Like this wasn't a one-off. This kept happening, and it was noticed.
Yeah, but it's like, so what?
So I think it's bad. I think it's bad, and I don't. I think it's been embarrassing for Lotus Eaters.
I don't know. I just think they're allowed to have their doubts.
This is like Owen Jones having Corbyn, McDonnell, and whoever else on to complain about Starmer, and at no point making the point, "Oh, but you're actually quite useless, though, weren't you?" And it's like we all think Owen Jones is a grifter. Actually, no, I can believe he believes this stupid stuff. We all agree he's useless anyway. Well, leftists think so anyway. I'd expect them to be a little bit more like Aaron Bastani, say. Because even when he has left-wingers on, he's surprisingly more nuanced than he was a few years ago. Don't trust Aaron Bastani, by the way. But I kind of want Lotus Eaters to be, amazingly, a right-wing version of the modern Navarro media. Because it is not as bad as it used to be. It's still crazy. So I don't want them to be crazy, obviously. But, they should be covering topics, looking at it through a right-wing perspective, but actually trying to parse information properly. And as Tory Boy says, they never look at first-hand sources. It's mostly laziness.
I mean, I'd like it if they covered different stuff, really.
Yeah.
More different stuff. Because this whole stuff, it just bores me after a while, Well, you know what I mean? I just like a bit of variety and stuff.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I remember in the early days, he did actually say how one of the issues was that when he first founded Lotus Eaters, he wanted it to actually be a bit more positive. But unfortunately, he found out pretty quickly that more negative coverage.
It does a lot better.
Just head and shoulders, ranks way better.
I don't know how true that is.
It is.
It is true. It is true.
One thing I've noticed, these
it's not even just an internet thing either. It's also you'll see it in news, magazines, any type of marketing. You'll see it.
Yeah, legacy media's done that for ages.
I think, and I think it's just harder to get positive stuff to sell. I don't think it's which I guess is saying the same thing.
Exactly.
I'm just saying for my channel, my best videos are pretty much all positive. It's usually Boris winning the election. Carl, years ago, Carl's doing well in the UKIP thing. I'll probably have to delete that soon. The one, what was another one? Oh, the Starship Troopers one, where I basically say, oh, Starship Troopers is actually a really positive message, and no one knows what fascism is on the left wing. That was one that was really well.
Sargon's video on that was really good.
I remember that.
Like
was
like
really
I mean,
good.
like it would have been nice if we had more of that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, I think they would have done
And,
really
like-
well, but the
And I think
effort.
I think that's actually maybe that's what we will be getting, because he has been doing stuff on his own channel again. So and he's been streaming
and,
with
like-
Arch as well, which has been fun.
Yeah. And have you seen like these Okay.
What was that?
Oh,
Was that a yawn? Carry on.
did he? Did
yeah,
finish?
you've seen
Oh,
these
sorry.
these
Crude jokes.
these videos of these people who go around towns and stuff.
Mhm.
Like there's some, I remember one of these channels. It was they're set up as going around the best and worst towns in Britain.
Mhm.
They haven't done. I don't think they've done any best towns. It's just all been the negative stuff, because that sort of slop just sells better than look at these lovely places.
I think are you okay? Are you okay, Rebuttal? I think he fell asleep.
Is he all right?
I think he fell
What kind of
asleep.
dream is he having?
Is he snoring?
Yeah, I think that's a snore. Right, okay.
It's a fat snore.
I'll mute him. I'll mute him. I'll mute him. I'll mute him. I'll mute him and end it, and I'll end it.
He's gonna start shouting the N-word in his
No,
sleep. Okay. Oh, hello.
I've muted him. If he wants to be unmuted, he'll have to tell me in the other side of the hill chat. But that's a shame, because I was hoping to get his conclusion there. But oh well.
Shall I make one?
He said he was back. He said he was back.
Did he say he was back? I thought he said.
Yeah, he said.
Are you there?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy.
All right. Well, we're gonna close up now. Well, I've done my conclusion. I guess we'll go around the board. I guess we'll go from most Farage deluded to least. So Tharium,
I'm the most.
you're the most on this panel.
I wondered who you're going to pick.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I take it your conclusions mostly. Yes, Farage derangement exists. I'm probably overly harsh on it, and some of the things we've gone through are probably fairer criticism than I've let on.
I'm not so. I mean, my main derangement is Zaya.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than Nigel. I also I don't like trying to make enemies of people who I don't think are enemies. So I like this stuff with Carl. Like, I can accept him having different opinions. That's fine. I don't know. There's plenty of things I don't agree with Carl on, but I still think he's a decently good bloke, and that's all that really matters to me.
I'm telling you that this. I'm going to look at this Enoch Powell thing, and depending on what he says, is either going to cement my feelings now, or it's going to throw them up in the air again. So that'll be fun. Right, next least Farage deranged, I guess, is Tory boy. Rebuttal, give us a conclusion.
Oh, I'm completely deranged.
You're deranged. You're deranged for a different reason, though.
Okay. Well, obviously some people are very deranged with Farage, and like, I know we talked a lot about Carl here, but he actually probably isn't the worst. And Farage has made a lot of enemies over the years, and that's just what's going to happen when people are jealous of you.
Yeah, I'll say on the point of Carl, I've mainly really brought him up because he keeps platforming the deranged people. But,
no, that's fine. I don't mind hearing from absolutely crazy people.
Just Stephen Wolf like every other day. Yeah, I mean, it's fine platforming them. It's just it's a bit like the Douglas Murray thing of if you want to be taken seriously, at least have something pro Farage about these particular topics. But well, anyway. Anyway, finally, Cero.
I think that learning from my own Trump, positive derangement syndrome, I was, and still am, just complete Team MAGA, even to an obvious fault. I think that there is a danger to locking yourself too much to a person rather than to an idea, though I will also give the point that people are a lot more tangible than ideas, and that can be a positive and a negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, again, if you now try and associate too much with the people and the ideas, if you try and associate the people and the idea too much, you're going to end up in a situation where the Farage derangement syndrome sort of kicks in, because the person can never truly live up to the ideal. And with a lot of ideas, that's usually a good thing. But I think that overall, I'm kind of, it probably sounds strange in this context, but I'm actually pretty neutral on Farage. For me, I sort of just see him as a means to an end. I just want this country to start doing better, and I'm not really too much fussed on how that looks. If it's with Farage, it's with Farage. If it's not with Farage, then it's not with Farage. It's a bit of a, I don't even know if that's like a fence sitter take, but that's really all that I actually care about at the end of the day.
Well, yeah. Well, I just
that's.
I
mean,
think
that's
it's fair
like
enough.
Sargon, really. You know.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Sargon just wants things to get better.
I just don't have a degree like Sargon, and so that's where we split.
I mean, everyone wants good thing.
Well, yeah, but I can define good thing better than like leftists.
Yeah, and plus, some people lie about wanting good thing, as we saw with Boris Johnson.
Well, the Greens are certainly on that level of thinking, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've pretty much already concluded. Farage derangement syndrome has spread like a virus on the online right, and it has made people come to absolutely insane conclusions, and these people need to be largely ignored, which is largely what I'm doing anyway.
Well, they are.
And given time, it will start to dissipate.
The thing,
how many people actually care about what Ben Habib says?
Well, there was a count.
They are being ignored.
There are people in Reform that will be hiding their power levels on this, and it's them I worry about. Luckily, people have been kicked out for being too open about it.
These people are my hope.
For goodness sake! Do you want to destroy the party?
Just remember, we need to win. Everything else is, you know.
So yeah, you're gonna have
that.
You're going to have enemies within, definitely.
I'd say definitely the majority of people involved in Reform are definitely to the right of Nigel.
I don't see it. I just don't see it.
That's not a good thing.
I mean, like Mitch, he's another guy who's been working with Reform. He definitely says that. Well, maybe it's the different areas, you know, but yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. I'm in North Wales, where basically everyone moved to escape from Manchester, so it's you'd expect them to be more right wing, but I'm not getting that vibe, and no, I'm not hearing it from other people I'm in DMs with about it either. So I don't know. It depends where Mitch is. I mean, I guess it depends where he is, as you say, but yeah, it's. If nothing else, Farage is definitely the only game in town. Don't care what you say, Tory boy. Jenrick's going to fail.
Well, Jenrick already failed.
No, you know, you could have another leadership election.
Oh.
Mitch also does say that he views Nigel as someone who can be pulled rightwards.
Well, that's the other thing that never seems to be taken into account. I mean, we've agreed he dog whistles a bit. You know, what are the odds he's hiding his power levels to some degree? Well,
I mean, like there's like this, like how someone like that, it can work both ways. You know, like we've seen it already from his like position on his public position on immigration has got a lot more hardline over the past few months. And on one hand, like.
By saying on one hand you want someone
on one hand you want one hand you want someone with conviction, but on the other hand having someone who's pliable in your direction is also good. So
I think a man who puts up the poster saying breaking point and is an admirer of Enoch Powell probably understand you need to hide your power level to some degree, is how I'd put it.
Oh, for a sec I thought you meant Starmer. Sorry, carry on.
Yes.
No, well, Starmer is technically hiding his power level. He's just hiding his left-wing agenda. Anyway,
he's hiding it so well that he's having to. Do you think that he's gone full horseshoe? Like he's hiding the power level so much.
I think he is the perfect NPC.
When he next week he's going to announce a policy on getting the trains to run on time. We know what's we know what the plan with them will be.
Is he building camps? Oh, nice. Right. Anyway, I was supposed to end this an hour and a half ago. So well done.
Oops.
Right. It doesn't really matter. It's shield time anyway. Thursday, more Subnautica. Do catch me on my channel. Laughing at the Guardian is this Saturday. I was about to say I have Tory Rebuttal on. I don't have Tory Rebuttal on. I do have Tharium on though, because he's always on. Apart from like 2 weeks ago. And then it'll be.
I came on then as well.
Oh, you did actually. That's a good point.
I remember that.
I don't want to hear about your negligent discharges. And then we've got Vicar Stead or Steadman who'll be on. He's my contact when I ask about legal things. It's quite funny. And then finally we have Claire again. So Tory Boy's alter ego, I guess we'll call him. And then
he's actually nothing like me.
You're right. He's a much bigger Tory simp, which I'm surprised at.
I think he could just be Tory Boy's twink bottom, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he sounds like a twink. Anyway. I would look forward.
Got excited at that thought.
I would look forward to that episode, though. They are definitely going to go all Enoch Powell this week, so let's look forward to that. Right. I don't think he'd make it 3 hours into this, to be fair. Right, anyway, videos out as and when on my channel. It's pretty much every day. I may as well just say every weekday. And then the odd one on Sundays. And yeah, that's all shilling done. So I got no super chats, rip. But you can obviously super chat or super thanks. You can do that on my channel as well. All the money goes to me anyway, because I run these damn things. Not only that, but you can become a channel member too. You can be really cool, like Cero.
Hello.
Yes, and you can subscribe, like, and leave a comment as well. Right, my brain's shutting down, so I need to go to bed soon. So with that, I'd like to thank the chat for being very involved, especially that Chris Fisher, who's been an absolute mad case.
It's been a bit nuts, this chat.
Honestly, as I say, let it never ever be said that we're an echo chamber.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, we've had good differing perspectives here. I do enjoy it.
I meant including chat.
Oh, including chat. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we have the Scottish atheist socialist nut job. Yeah.
So yes, thank you very much for being involved. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on. Thank you, Tory Rebuttal, and thank you, Tharium. Right.
Thank you for having me.
That's everything I had for you for today. Once again, thank you very much for